Hello, everybody. So, welcome again for the second day of TIL Conf. So, the first one we had yesterday was a really wonderful day, and today I think also we have really great speakers. So, let's directly get into it. So, today for the first talk, we have Armin with us. He's a front end team lead with 8 years of experience. He's a Google developer expert for Angular, and he's also an author for a modern Angular book. So, welcome on stage, Armin.
Hi
Hi, Armin.
everyone. So happy to be here. Happy to do this.
Thank you very much for being here. So, really looking forward to this talk. So, for the first talk, Armin will show us the superpower of directives in Angular. So, stage is yours, Armin.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just quickly share my screen here so that we can. Yeah. Can you confirm my screen is visible for everyone?
Yes, it's visible now.
Not. Oh, I think now it is, right? Yeah. But- So today we're going to talk about Angular directives. And to everyone who here on this stream is familiar with some of my articles, some of my work, I have a series of articles about Angular directives. And it's actually a pretty big topic. And today's examples are all from those articles, like the most practical ones and the ones that actually quite expand our thinking about how Angular directives work and how they can benefit us in building enterprise applications. So in the end, I will also post a link to the series of these articles so you can learn even more about directives. As you can see, like the subtitle of this talk is the most overlooked Angular tool, which is true in my opinion, in the sense that components, yeah, surely we all know about them, we use them all the time, but directives are sort of used way less than we would actually like to do. In lots of scenarios, directives are even better than components, and we can achieve lots of things using directives. So let's jump into it and see first some misconceptions that developers, Angular developers have about directives, which actually sort of don't allow them to use them more, right? So they are often underutilized. Why is this way? Are they not a core feature of Angular? Well, let's see. Uh, Developers, first of all, like the biggest misconception is that directives are just like custom attributes, which is true to an extent that, yeah, sure, lots of directives are custom attributes for HTML elements, but they can be way more than just that. And we will see with these examples. We also kind of tend to avoid putting business logic in directives uh, because there is this line of thought that directives are for DOM manipulation and it's just technical. It isn't related to exactly the business of our application, which is not really true. Nothing forbids us from putting like business logic there, handling our application needs inside directives, and also using that to simplify our templates. Again, we will see lots of examples proving that too. Another big thing that is going around is the structural directives are seen as like intimidating, and with the advance of these new template syntax that we now have, they also feel kind of outdated. But the truth is that the template syntax is here to replace some of the built-in structural directives like ngif, ngfor, ng-switch. But the concept of the structural directive is never going to go anyway. So we can always build new structural directives, custom ones, to help handle complex logic in our templates, work with the DOM, simplify the code in the templates, and so on. So structural directives really should be our friends, and we should learn where we can use and apply them. Right. And lastly, and this is in the continuation of the very first point, developers are often unaware of the power of directive selectors. So often just focus on, okay, let's create one custom attribute, app something, my directive, and then use it. But in general, you don't even need a custom directive, you just need a precise selector, and you can actually target just specific HTML elements or attributes or attributes values even, and even CSS classes. So there's lots of variation on how we can structure our directive and how we can pick up elements that our directive will actually work on, right? So with these examples, now we're going to try to sort of move away all of these misconceptions and understand that, directives actually have way more use cases than we ever thought. So let's begin with our first example and see how we can target way more than just custom attributes. We can actually build directives that affect specific HTML elements and also export data from them. So directives, just like components, when we apply a directive, there is an instance of the directive class created, and it has a state, it has some data inside its properties. Actually, in the template where we're using this directive, there is a way of picking up that reference and using data from it to simplify logic in the parent template. And it comes really useful when we want our directive to be really generic, really reusable, and not dependent upon the context where it has been called. So to illustrate this, we're going to take a look at an example of a password strength directive. As you can see in the screenshot, it's like a directive that will pick a password type input and evaluate the value of the password that the user entered and return a value that says it is weak or medium or strong. And then we will show a way of using it in the parent template. So we want to build a directive that is generic and that it doesn't dictate how the UI will work. It will just target the element and give us the info if the password is good or not, and then the parent template will decide what to do with that information. So let's see how it goes. Here is the directive. It's very, very generic in that sense. So here we have the property called strength, which will just have value like a string value of weak, medium, strong, or whatever. And we will also have an evaluator function. So this is really a reusable directive in the sense that the application can tell this directive which way we want this directive to figure out the strength of a password, because for different applications or even different components, it might be kind of different. So we either can inject it from a global context, so we can provide a function as a token, right, in some place in the hierarchy of our application components. So it will globally work on all evaluator directive instances. Or instead, we can inject it, pass it via an input. So here we say, okay, let's pick up the global evaluator token. If there is no global, then use the default one, but it is also an input. As we can see, the input decorator is here. So if the parent component directly passes as a function in some case, then we can just use that function and don't rely on a global definition, right? And then we just use a host listener to pick up the input event, and essentially we just pick up the value, run it through the evaluator function, and store the result in the strength property. As you can see, this directive essentially isn't doing much. It just binds this input type password. As you can see, the selector, it says it's not a custom attribute. It targets all inputs that have the type attribute which is equal to password. So all password inputs. It just picks up all those elements and works this magic on it using this custom evaluator function and just stores that data. So it doesn't do anything. It doesn't manipulate the DOM. It doesn't change anything, nothing. It just stores the data. And then the parent component where an input of type password exists will pick up this info and do something with it. So for it to be able to pick up the reference to these properties, we need the second parameter that we have here in the directive metadata, which is called export as, and it sort of gives this directive a name by which we can export the reference to this class instance. So in the parent component, as we will see in the next slide, we can just pick up the password evaluator name and say, oh, okay, this is the reference to this component instance, to this directive instance. And then I can just reference the strength property and find out if the password was weak or strong or whatever. So let's see how it will work in a parent component. So here we have an input of type password. So naturally our directive will just bind to it. We don't use any other attribute. And then we use this evaluator name, like a local variable, and the password evaluator from the previous slide, the export as text, is used here to say, okay, this evaluator local variable will hold the reference to the directive that is implicitly created on this input element. After that, because I have the reference to the directive instance, I can just say evaluator.strength, and here I use the switch case statement, and I say, okay, if the strength is weak, then I will show text that says weak. If it's medium, I will show text that is medium. Of course, I can show a lot of other things depending on the context. If I have another page where the user has to enter a password and there I need to show some other templates, then again, this directive isn't showing a template. It just provides me the information of whether the password is good or not, and then the parent component will just decide how to proceed with that information, right? So what this tells us, some key takeaways, like directives can target specific HTML attributes, not just custom ones. As in this example, we directly accessed input type password. We can specify even the exact values, right? We specify that we not only want just inputs, but we want inputs that have the type attribute that has the value of password. So not type email, not type tel, but type password, exactly. We can do this with all other attributes. We can target specific HTML elements with IDs, for example. Not that it's a big use case, but it can be done. We can also export data from a directive instance by using the export as metadata. You can stick to the directive instance and just use the data from it in the parent component, which can be useful in different scenarios, as we saw. Oh, well, we can also pass inputs to directives. Well, most of us already knew that, but can become handy. What is also interesting that we can pass global configuration to directives via dependency injection. As we saw there, we are not required to provide this function, evaluation function by input. We can just provide it somewhere, say in the application root, and then all of the directive instances will have access to it. So we can configure directives both via inputs, but also globally via dependency injection. And that's actually very big strength for directives. They, in that sense, they are kind of equal to components, right? So this is about the data sharing with the directives and outside of the directives. Let's now tackle the next misconception, talk about structural directives and where they can be used. So structural directives can actually not only just manipulate templates, we can actually create templates, create components, new components with structural directives, even project content into them, like we would do with the ng content, and use these new views in parent templates. And this will actually, as we see, simplify the parent template greatly. Right. So here we're going to build like a loading screen. So this is essentially a component that receives a loading boolean, and it has some projected content, and it will replace that content with the loading screen whenever the loading boolean becomes true. Right. So this is a pretty common task. So first of all, let's forget for a moment about directives, and we can just create a component for that, like a loader component. Here is the input that says loading. And here we have ng content. So inside of ng content will be the content that will be hidden or shown depending on whether there is a let's say, HTTP call happening or something like that. And if there is the loading, we will show a spinner component, right? And there will be some styles that will move that around and whatever, which is not really relevant in this scenario. So this component is fairly simple. It just uses content projection and some internal, very simple logic. But because it has ng content and it is a very useful component, it is possible that in certain templates we will have both lots of instances of this component, but also like nested instances. For example, might have a big page that needs a loading screen, and inside of it we have some big piece of information that can be loading. And inside of that component, we can have, for example, a list of components, like under a YouTube video, you have like comments, and those can be like have a loading state. In that scenario, as we can see, the HTML template can become sort of cluttered. We can see that we have this app loader here, then inside of it we have another app loader and another app loader and so on. And this is lots of boilerplate. We don't really need to spell this out every time. We can just select, if we could just select one HTML element and say, okay, this is the one that needs to be covered with this loading, with this Boolean, that would be great. That would be really, really simplify, for example, this template. And turns out we can do that. We can do the structural directives. What we can do, we can say, okay, take this content, take this template, and wrap it inside a component and project its content inside of that component, right? So what we can do here, we can create this component, which at first looks kind of intimidating, but what it does is actually fairly simple. So it's a structural directive. It's called loader directive because it is going to wrap some content inside of the loader component that we saw previously. So it's a structural directive, which means it injects the template ref, the reference to the template. And because we are going to dynamically build a component, then we will need the view container ref. Okay, and we also have an input that says loading, and with this input we will know if we need to show the loading spinner or not within that component. Now here we will have this template view and loader ref. The template view is essentially the template that we are going to create and insert instead of the original content. And the loader ref is the reference to the loader component, which we will now dynamically create. So what happens here, we will just create an embedded view, as we do, usually we do this step with all structural directives because we're going to insert some content or update some content. So we create an embedded view. And next thing, we create a loader component, which is again a task that is familiar to most Angular developers, this view container ref.create component. So this works fine. This is something familiar, and we pass the injector reference because there's might be some dependency injection going on. The really interesting part comes when we actually want to use our existing template, which we get from this template ref, and put it inside of this loader component. As we remember, the loader component had ng content. So how do we do this with the create component function? Well, actually, this configuration object accepts an interesting property called projectable nodes. So this is the template that we want to project inside this component, inside the ng content of this component. And there we can just pick up the template views, its root nodes properties. This contains the references to the actual kind of like HTML elements or wrappers around them that we want to be projected inside the loader component. So here we created the loader component with this template view. It works now. The last thing that we need to do is we want to pass this loading value to the loader component we just created, and we use this new set input function. Well, it's relatively new, so it will also like trigger change detection for loader ref. And we do the same thing for ng on changes because every time that this input changes, we need this component's loading state to be changed. So we just repeat this code here. And finally, if change detection happens here for some reason, we need to pass that event to this template that we just created. So we also implement the ng-do-check lifecycle and just say that, okay, if change detection happened here, then please detect changes in the template ref, because the loader component, for example, might change and it might acquire let's say, an on-push strategy, which sometimes might require us to manually trigger change detection. So just to be safe, we will just write this lifecycle and say, okay, detect changes when the template view has changes here, this directive. And all of this code will work in the way that it will greatly simplify our template, because we have the loading selector, and we can just pick up an HTML element and say, okay, show loading over this paragraph element if this property is true, and do the same for this span element or this paragraph element. And as you can see, we're not even using the reference to that loader component. And it really simplifies our template. We don't need to spell out all that every time we want to show a loading screen. So again, some takeaways here. We can structural directives have use cases aside from existing native ones like ngIf or ng4 or so on. Directives can be used to render actual components. Like we not only work with like existing templates and say, okay, pick this template and put somewhere, but we can also actually create real components and project content into them. And we can pass inputs to the dynamically created components. So all the intercommunication between the parent template and this child component can work both ways. And we can also control the change detection cycles of this dynamic component, regardless of what change detection strategy it uses. So again, this gives us a lot of power over our templates. Next, we want to tackle the other myth that people often have, is that we should not put business logic into directives. There are actually no rules against it. Nowhere it says that directives only exist to handle like DOM-related tasks. So let's break that myth. Let's build a permission directive that in an application handles different permissions and shows some content depending on whether the user has the permission to see it or not. Usually we would do an ngIf with some logic inside of it, and which will call some services, but we can again simplify it with a directive. So here I'm already using signals, and as you can see, I'm using the ngIf host directive, but you can also do without it, because ngIf is now not the preferred way of doing things, and because we now have the new template syntax, but it's fine if you want to use it as a host directive for now. So what we do, we have a permission service that will tell us whether the user has some permissions or not. And we have reference to this ngIf host directive on our element. And next, we'll pick up the permission, okay, via an input, which permission this user needs to have to see this specific HTML element. And next, we will just use this permission name and call this permission service to check if the user has this permission or not. So this has permission will be a Boolean value that indicates whether this current user has that permission. And finally, we'll just have an effect that will pass this Boolean to this ngIf reference, and essentially we'll just use ngIf to switch the element on and off depending on whether the user has this permission or not. And as you can see, this is essentially binding this business logic from the permission service, which is entirely related to our application logic, to the template via directive. And well, in the HTML template, we will just have to say like asterisk has permission and the name of a permission, and it will act as like an ngIf directive, but way more particular in this scenario. And we can upgrade this. We can make it strongly typed, so developers will pass correct permission names, or pass an array of permission if the user needs to have multiple permissions to see something. So we can always use this to sort of have great simplified templates in the sense of complex but often reusable business logic can be moved to a directive, right? And it's very simple. So key takeaways here: business logic does belong in directives. Actually, we should be using that more often. We can use directives to handle shared logic in templates. Often what happens with stuff like this is developers will go around copy pasting that code, which is not very good, because sometimes, for example, the logic behind handling, even in this example, the directives might change, and then we'll need to refactor a lot. We also saw the signals. We can use signals in directives. It can facilitate like writing quite dynamic logic that depends on inputs, outputs, and so on. And in the end, we can just use structural directives to help us with the code clutter in the templates, right? Uh, Finally, a small example, we can actually use directives to add custom events. So we know that directives can have outputs, but actually the funny thing is that the outputs can have the same name as the directive selector, and then it will feel like we have added a custom event. So for example, here we are building, here we want to build a click away directive. So if the user, for example, in this pop-up clicks somewhere other than this pop-up, we want the pop-up closed. So essentially we want a click away event. And we can achieve this with this directive, which again looks a bit big, but actually just picks up the element reference as usual, the reference to document and reference to renderer. And then we will just listen on clicks on the entire body of our document. And if the click has been outside of our element of this directive, we will just emit this output. And here the clever trick is that this output has the same name as the directive selector. And this will come handy in the template because next we will just write something like, for example, a dialog element, and then we will call click away as an event equals close dialog. So here, this code here, this parenthesis click away, will both create the instance of the directive, so the event listeners will work, and also emit the event of clicking outside of this dialog. So essentially, we don't need to invent another attribute. We can just use the same name as the event that we are going to emit. And this is actually a very cool thing. There are lots of custom events that can be created and registered this way and used, again, to simplify a template, to make it shorter. And it's also handy because we can just, if we have like Angular language services, we can just click on this, control click on this and get the definition of the directive. So it's also like easy to understand. So we have seen several examples. In conclusion, I want to say like directives, as we can see, are a powerful tool. It's often underutilized, and it's my life mission to help people to amend this, to try to use this tool a lot. It can be used to perform common tasks in the template, even if it is related to the business logic, especially if it is related to the business logic. As we have seen in multiple examples. Directive selectors, as we have seen, they can be way more than just attributes. They can be bound to our event outputs, event emitters. They can be bound to CSS classes. They can be structural. They can be attributes with specific values. So possibilities are endless in this case. And we can handle like template logic and mimic custom events as we've seen in the last example. So again, really lots of use cases for directives. And often when we think about, oh, maybe I need to create a component, sometimes we need to slow down and think whether a directive can do the job there and be simpler than a component that is getting to be reused in multiple templates. If these examples were interesting for you, I suggest you continue reading the full series of the articles. There are 7 articles, each covering way more use cases than we have mentioned during the talk. I've created a short link. You can go to t.ly/directives and you will see all the 7 articles, all of them with workable examples on StackBlitz, so you can try them out and see which ones might fit for a project that you're working on. And also you are feel free to comment there and ask questions. I try to respond to all of the questions that come in under the articles. Okay. And finally, I had a small promotion, as Ahmed mentioned at the beginning. I wrote a book about modern Angular, which will be out very soon. It's already available. The first 8 chapters are available in early access, so you can grab it if you're interested. It covers all the latest topics of Angular, like standalone, dependency injection, so server-side rendering, unit testing, everything new that we have in the world of Angular. Very soon after the Angular 18 version release, the final 2 chapters also get released. So the Manning publication in the event of the This is Learning conference has gladly provided a promo code, the one that you can see on the screen, AVANG24. It's valid until August 15th and grants 45% discount on all Manning products. And you can use this QR code if you're interested. You can check out my book, and you can also get it using the promo code if you are interested. There is also a great bit about directives there too, especially host directives with examples how to migrate and so on. So yeah, I think this is it. Here is some contact information. I will be happy to listen about any questions. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to DM me if you have questions, especially questions about Angular directives. I will be happy to try to help you out. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So thank you very much, Armin. This was very nice talk about directives, and yeah, very happy that
Yeah.
you are able to be here today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much too. I'm really happy to do this. It's great. Hopefully, you'll find it helpful.
No, yeah, for sure it was. Thank you very much. So, guys, yeah, next up we have Ankur. So Ankur is yeah, he's a software developer, he's a consultant, he's a writer, and yeah, he does multiple things. And today he will take us on a trip on showing us how a software engineer can, so writing for software engineering. Ankur, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Ahmed. Yeah, thank you
Hi,
very
how are you? So thank you for being here today. I'm really looking forward to read about this, to listen about this talk, as I also would like to sometimes write for about software development. So please show us how can we do the magic.
Yeah, sure. So, to be honest, like exactly what is the format? Like, just need to present it.
Yes,
We have some people in the event as well.
yes. So we are actually live on YouTube now, so you can just present now the thing. So if you have something to share, you can share it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe let me share my screen. Okay. Whenever you see a new kind of a stuff to understand. Just a second. Better to share entire screen.
Okay, now we have the screen on.
You able to see my screen?
Yes. So I will leave now. I can leave you to start. The stage is yours now.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ahmed. So, guys, this is Ankur Tyagi. So, I live in Sweden. Like basically, this is my story. So, an Indian living in Sweden. So, I'm working as a software consultant here, and primary bread and butter is code. So, I do coding in React and Next.js, Angular as well, a little bit. Basically, front end tech is something which I comes natural, and I do some backend as well. But I think since last 4 years, I was accidentally go into writing and in depth in blogging. I was working with one of the startups, and then did some dev real role kind of that as well. So dev real is something basically very deep term. So many things we do as a dev real, and I'm now living in Gothenburg with my wife and my champ. He's just turned 10. So moving forward, so today our agenda is like why writing is important for software engineers. So I am working in tech almost like 14 years now. So initial years, we mostly focus on coding, trying to do a lot of things in terms of to understand exactly how we build applications, softwares. blah blah blah. Yes, that's everything is important, but as you move in your ladder, or what you say, corporate ladder, so I think soft skills also becomes very important. So you see around yourself, like people sitting on the top positions, so they just don't only code, so they communicate well as well, to be honest. So that's why they become part of core team members. They took decisions. It just not code which gives you ramp up in your career. So you need to be well versed in communication, how to communicate, not only verbal communication, but that's where like writing is something which I personally feel it impacts everyone from our day-to-day activities. For example, like if you are working in agile, so someone is writing MOMs for our daily scrum, someone is writing some proposal for next project, or what POC I have to done for, let's say I need to present something to the management, so I have to convince them. So this is where writing comes into the picture, because if you can't present something to other peer team members, so it becomes very difficult, because not every time it's not possible to just talk about technical terms. So you have to be well versed in writing as well. If I give more examples, let's say you have raised a PER, and you just write some very basic things which is very tough to understand as a senior member who is very busy in other areas of work as well. So you must give a good commit message, so that it's easy for the person who is reviewing your PR to understand exactly why you have changed this file, and what you are doing in this particular section of code. So these are all the things which we are trying to cover as part of this talk, and I will touch base bit of everything. Yeah, it's not easy to cover everything in just one single session. So maybe end of the slides, I will give you some references where you can go and read more in depth about writing and how it can helps you to grow in your career. So basically, this is what you can expect from today's talk. Okay, what to expect? Yeah, and so first, I think why a developer should write. Yeah, this is one of the basic question. I think even I had a few years back when I was introduced in this writing, and I have deep down into the whole, like, why people who is writing well on the internet getting more opportunities instead of the one who is just writing the code in their own shadow. So, and why writing in public is important instead of just not only within your premises. What I mean is like within your original team where you are working, because you must not only limit yourself to the team which you are working, you just do some public writing as well. Not only it's not I'm saying like you from tomorrow you start writing about XYZ topics randomly. No, it won't help. But I think my point of view is like you should start thinking about what kind of a problems you have already solved in your career, in your last team, and what kind of a challenge you really want to understand from your current point of view. If we talk about latest trends like AI, RAG, and LLMs, so many people wants to learn. In fact, like yesterday only, Crew AI released. Founder of Crew AI, Andrew, released a course around how to build agents. So this is what, if you are interested, so first go learn, and then write about what you have learned. So this way is basically will give you more better natural instinct and natural way of command your things which you are trying to learn. Remember old days when we were kids, and when we were doing our exams, so we used to write a lot, and before exams we do a lot of practice. At least I was the one, like before going into the exam, I was writing particular questions or answers multiple times, so that I have a better grasp of the concept. So, and you can mix it up basically. It's not always like you have to write entire thing to showcase other people. You can write in your own shallow as well, on shadow as well. Like not always you have to post the content in public. But yes, why writing in public helps is basically you will get a direct feedback from the people. And don't worry about negative feedbacks or comments or bullying, all those things. This is all part of this game basically. If you get, you have to just ignore it. You need to find people who can help you, because there are a lot of good people out there on the internet. And you will get help. You must be courageous to ask for the help. You must be able to send good DMs and send good cool pitches to the people whom you admire, because that's what I did in my career. And that's where I'm here. Like I yeah, definitely, if you send 10 people a DM, maybe response, getting a response maybe one or two or maybe three. But I think that's what you need. You just need one response to get started, and to get feedback. That's what. And if we talk about in a different terminology, like when you do open source contributions, so you start raising PRs and you start contributing. And see, that's where again writing comes into the picture. How you present your PR to the open source contributors on maintainers, it depends your communication style and what exactly you have changed. So this is what I feel like every developer should write at least minimum one blog a month, maybe not at least two blogs a quarter is basically what least you can expect from yourself. And mind it, initially it's boring and maybe you feel okay, it's not working for me. But uh, just give 12 months, 1 year straight. At least if you able to write 5 6 articles, you will gradually feel and start improving yourself and feeling, getting a change in your ideology and thinking, and how you actually grasp that particular concept as well. And yes, one of the thing is, if you stuck as well, this is again a important criteria why you should write. As if you look at the Stack Overflow before ChatGPT, if there was no Stack Overflow and people don't write their answers, so we all were in a very bad situation. So that's where it's not just you have to write a complete blog post. Write something which is important, not only for you, what you have learned, what you have solved, which will be helpful for the people who might get into trouble in the same situation. So this is what I feel why it is helpful. And again, there are multiple things which we are just talking, like why writing is a good skill. So you learn by doing. Exactly, it's not just you are watching a YouTube tutorial or Udemy tutorial and just feeling like a procrastinate after feeling that, and feeling like a imposter syndrome. Okay, this is too much. For example, tomorrow you need to build something in a very different framework or language which you haven't worked in your career. So what I feel, uh, instead of just watching the entire tutorial, I will go and build something around that project, small POC. And after that I will write how I actually build it, how I even write that hello world in that particular X or Y language. So this way it will give you fast learning opportunities. And again, if I come back to the topic, why build in like write in public. So this will build your connections, and it will generate future leads and opportunities. People will DM you instead of you going after for the opportunities. This is what even I am doing right now. I'm helping one of the startups these days, and I'm searching people who's writing around LLMs, RAGs. So if they have written a very good blog post, so I'm reaching those people. So that's where it's a reverse engineering which you do for your career. So instead of you chasing opportunities on either career sites or different way of selecting the next opportunity, people come to you and they ask you the question, hey, you have written this particular post, would you be interested in this particular opportunity, blah blah blah. So this is what I encourage people. And next example I would like to say, it is a like write in public. And again, if you are not interested or still feel this is not a like a very what I would say, like you are not ready to write in public, so start doing things around your internal teams. uh, Initially what you can do, like next time whenever there is a change in a next feature, so start documenting those APIs, start documenting your MOMs, start documenting your RCAs. Like for example, in your team last month there was two production bugs. So what was actually happened, how we missed those bugs, and what was the RCA. And it will not only help you to write, it will help the entire team, and you will become a key person in the team. Like people will come to you, okay, hey, this guy writes a lot and writes very with clarity. So and this will give a management an idea, okay, this guy just not only just code, it take care of the entire team and think as a team member. So all these things will help if you start thinking about writing as well, and improve your soft skills under writing. And again, if I come back to the topic, writing is really a low hanging fruit for at least an experienced software engineers. But we just feel, okay, many people have already have a blog, so why should I write a blog again for basic topics like in JavaScript or in React? Everyone has already talked about. If you just Google it, what is hook in a React and how to build a simple application in React. So there are tons of blog posts available on the internet, but it doesn't matter because every single person is different who is searching on the internet, and every single person is different who is writing on the internet. So you just need to find the co-minded people who really interested in particularly your writing, not on the X number of people who has already written. So this is where it's helps you. You have to find your unique way to attract the people who understand the way you are writing. So that's what I said. And this is the picture from David Perel. He is a very good writer. I'm a big fan of him. Like read to collect the dots and write to connect them. This is what an important view of about writing. Like we were talking about example, if you are building a simple application in a new language or framework which you haven't explored in your career, so read to collect the dots. So you go to buy a different course, or maybe search for a YouTube tutorial, or maybe search for a mentor who can help you. So these are the dots. So you collect these dots and connect them basically. So build an application and then write about this particular application which you have just built around these new technologies. Adios, amigo. Powering off. Yeah, and of course, these are my like 4 years of professional uh, blogging experience. Basically, like um, uh, writing is something, unless you become a like good draft, it's not easy to start in the start. To be honest, many people start and they just give up, and after writing one or two blog posts. And I have shared on Twitter as well many times, like most people just do it in a bad way. Basically, like they, whenever a new engineer or software engineer is trying to start a new blog, they just start with choosing a tech stack. Okay, hey, now I am convinced I have to write these. They will start documenting their content backlog. But what will they will do? Okay, I have to choose a tech stack. They will over engineering the writing part basically, because and they will start investing their time in building the next generation blog. But no, this is the bad approach which I feel. You just choose whatever is available on the internet. There are tons of platforms which are ready to plug and play. You just go borrow that platform instead of owning your current platform right now. If Yes, one important thing I would add here. Yes, definitely. If after 12 months, after writing 5, 6, 10 blogs, you start feeling, okay, this is something I am trying to pursue in more in future, then you think about owning your content and all those things about SEO and all those many things which comes after that. But initial first years, I would recommend, don't think much, just think about your writing and put yourself out on the internet, and then start thinking about other things like and titles is something really important. 80% of the work is title. And then you instead of letting people know, okay, this is what I am doing, this is what I have written. No, start engaging, write something which people really interested, and how you have solved that particular problem. So you have to learn s- storytelling in writing as well. And third point is like okay, already we already discussed this third point, like duplicate ideas. Like if you search on the internet, there are tons of already available blogs which you have already written, which people have already written. So no need to worry about those duplicate ideas. It's your opinion, your feedback, and your particular problem which you have faced during that particular time. So this is what people are interested in. And yes, most important point which I feel, and I appreciate the people of TIL, they have asked me to come on the this event. But unfortunately, not many people are able to go to attend networking events and conferences every time. Maybe some people are working in remote and they can't afford to go to big cities. For example, if I talk about Europe, so like most conferences happen in like in Germany and France and all those areas. Like I haven't seen much conferences happening in Scandinavian areas where I'm living. I want to go, but it's not always feasible for me to go and back and forth. And for example, if I talk about India, so most conferences happen in Bangalore or Pune or Hyderabad. But if someone, or Delhi as well, definitely. But if someone is sitting somewhere else, so he or she not attend, maybe attend a one or two events a year if he or she is really interested. But it's not always feasible. But writing gives you wings basically. If you are on the internet, you can write and influence people, or share what you have learning and what you have did in the past and what you are thinking for the future events. So writing is really scalable activity, and not only within your organizations, but it's really helpful for your career growth as well. And yes, 6 point is, I talked about this. Like, don't look for strategy. There is no strategy. There is no funda. There is no basically hack here. How I have reached. I was just a normal developer like you people. I still feel. I think Ahmad asked me how to introduce myself. Like I always say, I'm just a plain software engineer. Nothing else. I don't believe in titles. At least since I came in Europe. So titles don't define you, and don't look for any specific strategy, and don't get influence from people who have already reached on a big stage in blogging, or and not even in blogging, if we talk about in general in engineering. So look for your unique style, and look come out from your something which only you can do, only you can write in that particular style. And trust me, many people will come, many people will ask you, okay, for the help. And definitely, if you look at the 7 point, initial years are definitely boring. You might feel, okay, not working, but this is where you have to push yourself. It's and I remember one tweet I think last year I took a tweet about this. If you go in a gym, basically, so initial days, it's always a tough, right? And first week is the most toughest. Your body, all the body will pain when you come back home, and next day you have to become more strong. And once you start going to gym at least for a month, then your body become used to, and that's where once you start writing, so your mind and your subconsciousness become very active, and that's where you get better clarity of thoughts. And you start things like you start thinking in a very different person in your team. And trust me, it will give you a lot of opportunity and confidence as well, like because you now a different person, you just not only code, you can help in many other areas as a team member as well. So and yeah, I think yeah, the last point is also I have almost touch base. Personal website is good. It's a very solid area to improve, but I think it's not highly recommended. I won't say like if you don't have personal websites, you won't get jobs or you won't get opportunity. No, it's not like that. I don't have had the personal website since I came here, so it was not a bottleneck to me, to be honest. Still I feel it's good for my personal business, but it's not something uh, very recommended from the start. So unless you are really working as a consultant like me, so I think if you are doing a 9 to 5 regular permanent job, so I think it's fine. If you don't have personal website, you can use available platforms like I don't want to name it, but I think we all know that top I if you go on my website, I have written like top 5 blogging platforms available on the internet. So moving forward, yeah, these are just some of the stats. And again, just my personal quotes, like writing is something, an asset, like it's an investment you are doing, like you do in your as a money, if you put in the stock market or like in real estate. So and that gradually compoundly it grows. This is where writing is again the same thing. If you start putting some efforts today, after maybe 5 years or 3 years or 4 years, definitely someone somewhere will give you an opportunity which you have never even imagined in your normal way of doing your career as a software engineer. So if you look at me, I was just one of you. And before 4 years, I had never written a blog post. Now I have written 2 books as well, to be honest. So yeah, first book was very like close to my heart. And second book I have written, I think this year start I have launched, like software engineering and writing for software engineers. And now I have my combined views of my blogs is like 1 million plus views. And almost on my website, daily traffic is around like almost monthly traffic is 80,000 people's come on my website. And I'm getting good revenue as well, learning from that, and countless positive feedbacks. And I'm in touch with a lot of startup founders. I have learned personally how to build startups and how to work in a startups, and what kind of challenges startups really get on a day-to-day basis. Again, this is just yeah, this is just for your motivation. Like second order effects of writing is like definitely you get a chance to earn some money as well if you want. If it's not I would say highly recommended. Not everything you should do just for monetization. Okay, because if you okay, let me give I just struck in my mind like one guy, I think DM me maybe I think last year, yeah, if I remember. when I wrote that blog post. So if you just write for okay, thinking okay, after maybe 1 year, 2 year, you will get some monetization from writing, I think that is a bad way to start, and that is something you are already having an obligation. So you should not have some obligation to write. You should have some options available. Feel free to write. Like, don't give yourself constraints before even starting. It's good if you can monetize, but if you are already getting a lot of other benefits, not just monetization. So don't just focus on money at this initial stage. Just focus on to get your craft and get your uniqueness, and that will give you as a second order effect of writing. And yeah, this is and to be just give an idea, like entire slide is not very like very beautiful slides I have made, but all these are questions which I generally get in my DMs, in my emails as well. So these are like full length answers I have written, like how I motivate myself to write. So initially, if I look at it was something I really wanted. So I was very passionate, and I wake up early in the morning as well. I pick up a schedule as well, and I have written I remember a streak on Dev2 and Hashnode around every week of blog, and I have 4 blogs a month, and I was like very rigorous in writing. But after writing 4 years, I'll be very honest. Sometime it feels, even for me, I can write a blog post in just one day. If I'm sitting and I'm in a mood, and if sometime if I get stuck or I don't feel coming writing, so it takes weeks as well. So then I realized I think only intrinsic motivation is something which is something you can take up to the last. So don't feel obligation, and that's why if I go here before moving to the previous slides, like options versus obligation. So you shouldn't obligate yourself before even starting writing. So it's good if you are passionate, if you are already finding your energy and your way of writing, you have already set some criteria. This is something like a plan. Okay, if you have already planned and you can dedicate some time, it's good. It's I think best, to be honest. But if you don't have that sort of energy and plan, but you still want to write, so uh, look for the signals from your mind, your body. If you are in a mood, in a zone, so I think definitely you can write and start writing. And sometimes one good hack I will give you, like it's not always I have to be on the desktop or laptop to write. Sometimes I was going on a bus, or I was going on a walk, so I get ideas around that. So notes is something like on Apple Notes. I feel the most beautiful app I have ever seen, the most simple app. I just start writing basic, at least one liners or two liners. Okay, this is the idea, and these are the points I can write. Nowadays, I think these GPT and all those things, AI tools comes, but before that, it was not all those tools. Now it's easy to do some research and some getting ideas of outlines and all those things. But before that, I think still, if you get some unique ideas, I will say don't think, because if you think okay, I will go back home and jot down these idea, 100% sure, 95% time you will come back home and you forget that about idea. So instantly you have to act about your ideas on that state. Yeah, motivation common question is, I think, already covered. And yeah, I think yeah, this was the point, how to come up with blog post ideas. Basically, maybe coping is something I won't say here. Start doing some research around the topics which you wanted to write, not only the topics which we have discussed earlier in the talk. uh, do some research, scratching your head, talk to your peers, talk to your colleagues, like what kind of problems they are facing, and see in the last 6 months, this was the problem with the team, or this was the problem which I had personally. So start thinking about topics in those areas. Don't just write about again, don't try to hack SEO or Google in the initial stages of your writing, because if you go in that lane, so definitely I will guarantee you will get burnout, and you will go in a like a bad lane instead of enjoying the writing what actually because if you go in that lane, so the natural instinct and unique voice which I am talking about will never come back, because you will go in that hacking path. So I'm not talking about hacking path, I'm not talking about as a marketer. You shouldn't write. You should write as a software engineer. You should write, think about your coding skills, and think about how you actually solve a problem, and then you just need to write it in a plain language, and then you need to format basically in your unique style. I think this is, we already talk. And personal brand, definitely when you become a good at your writing. So now it's monetization part I'm talking about. So I think most of the people know Jersley. He's a big name in software engineering newsletters, and you see pragmatic engineer newsletter. When I think this is the blog, Jazli blog, and newsletter was born I think around 2021, if I'm not wrong right now. So you see, initial 3 years there was no views for even Jazli as well. So if he can continue, so you can also continue. And I really admire him as a mentor. He's a great mentor to me. I have already discussed many times about my issues, my writing, and he is very very helpful, always uh, trying to help me, always answer all my stupid questions. And this is the image I have in front of my desk as well. So this gives you motivation. Like pragmatic engineer is one of the top newsletters these days in software engineering, and these were the starting points of pragmatic engineer blog. So this is for the blog, not for the newsletter. But this just to give an idea, like initial years, almost everyone, if you look at your ideal person or people whom you admire in your career, who are sitting on the top, they just started like you and me from the scratch, and they just continued for a longer period of time, and then all of a sudden they start getting views, or getting people start talking about, okay, this particular person has written this, and then they start uh, getting the ideas about how to actually monetize, or how to actually write more in-depth ideas. So just start writing. This is what I would say basically. And yes, this is like my latest work. You can see almost since last 2 months I'm very busy. I'm helping, so maybe I would disclose it, like just a little promotion. I am helping team Agent Cloud as a consultant, so as a technical writing partner. You see, I have written almost like six or eight blogs in last 2 months. So sometimes it's, if you are in a zone, you can write it. But sometimes if I was not in a zone and I was on holiday in India, so last initial 2 months was not very good. So it happens. So don't feel bad if you take a break around like a longer break as well. So it's similar to your coding journey. Like sometime you can code continuously for like 4 hours or 6 hours, and some days you can't even move a needle. So it's the same thing. So I would appreciate if you go and give us a star on the GitHub, agentcloud.com, agentcloud.dev basically. And we are an open source startup. and we are building a RAG, like you can talk to your data privately. And that's it, I think. If you don't have any, if you have any questions, feel free to DM me at dankurtyagi.com. Almost everywhere I am available, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you can visit. Maybe I'll show you some more references which I have. Yes, I think, yeah. This is one of the good blog posts which you can find on Free Code Camp. I think I would highly recommend. I have given more in-depth detail, like why you should write a developer blog, so you will get a very good understanding what we have just talked about. And if you go to my website, blah 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 blog. Okay, yeah, start a blog. Yeah, if you go in a start a blog and filter on start a blog, you will find a lot of different blogs. Especially, I would recommend to read this, like Software Developers Guide to Writing and How to Start a Blog. This is a good blog for people who don't have even a single idea, like which platforms they should even start. So this is good. And yeah, this is little promotion. This is what Agent Cloud. So if you are open source enthusiastic, so I would recommend to go and star us. And we are open for contributions as well. If you are open source developer and want to contribute, not only in code and writing and any other discussions as well, happy to help you. DM me. I'm part of the core team, so I can help you get started quickly. And yeah, just one last thing. Yeah, I want to show you, like, this is the, like, my main website, but you look at this Hashnode blog. It's almost like a 7,000 followers. So this is over the period of time. If you start continue writing, so definitely you'll get traction. This is my dev2 profile. You can see almost 532. I haven't even talked about this. And this is my Medium profile, and this is my HackerNoon profile. So you see almost many other, some blogs I do cross post, some I don't do cross post. So yes, Ahmed, I'm done. If anyone have any questions.
So, hi, Ankur. Thank you very much for this very interesting talk. Yeah, we will learn from it a lot. So, yeah, thank you very much for this. Um, yeah, I think we don't have any questions, so nobody sent anything in the chat in the comments. So, thank you very much again, Ankur. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
need to leave, or you said
yeah, I will remove it. I will remove you now. You need to just wait for the upload to finish. You'll
okay?
see it on the
Should
right
I
side.
just
Yeah.
wait?
Yeah, I will remove. Yeah, you can just wait. I'll remove you from stage, and then you can wait. Okay, thank you. Okay, guys. So yeah, after the very nice or a lot of information we had, I think now we go to the next talk. The next talk is from the Haman. He is a team lead, open source contributor. Sorry, no, this is the wrong one. Yeah, actually, that's true. So he's a team lead, open source contributor, and a blogger. The Harmon, please, I will add you to the stage now. Welcome to the talk.
Hi everyone.
So,
Good morning, good evening.
good afternoon in our side. So he
Yeah,
was going to talk today to us about how to use Material 3 to design with Angular. So really one of the very good topics nowadays also to talk about. So Raman, the stage is yours.
thanks, Ahmed. Can you all see my screen? Okay. Okay, great. Hi everyone. Myself, Dharmen Shah, and I'm going to talk about using Material 3 design with Angular. Uh, so before I start with the session, I'll like to take this moment and introduce myself. Ahmad has already introduced myself. So I call myself a developer, blogger, and open source contributor. And uh, I started my journey in a support and maintenance role. And fast forward today, I'm working as a team lead at Solvative. Uh, and I would like to thank This is Learning community and organizers to give me the opportunity to give you the talk in front of this great audience. So, when I started my journey in IT department, there was Angular JS, right? And now it has switched to this new version of Angular, right? So I have been working in IT industry for almost 10 years, but I was in touch with Angular along the whole way when it was Angular JS, and now it is Angular 17 and 18 is coming in the next week. I was in touch with Angular JS and Angular 2 plus versions. I have been writing blogs, I have been creating open source libraries, and I have been helping other developers to get onboarded on Angular framework. And the open source libraries which I have created has total got more than 1,000 GitHub stars. That just represents that the libraries are kind of helpful to other Angular developers. Now, today's agenda, I'm going to divide today's agenda in two phases and I'll try to complete within the given timeline. So I'll try to keep up my speed. So first, we'll take a step backward. We'll try to understand what is user experience. Then we'll just briefly take a look at what is material design. Then we'll see what is Angular material, that is a library which we are going to use today. And the second phase is going to be a coding session. We'll see if I can conduct a live demo or a slides. I have put the things ready. According to time, we'll proceed. So this is how the whole agenda is going to be. So let's get started. User experience. So when we think about user experience, this statement comes to my mind. User experience is the summary of everything. Uh, does anyone know who said this? You can answer in comments. Okay, so Steve Jobs said this, and he said that user experience is summary of everything, right? But what did he mean exactly by this, right? Now, we don't know what exactly he meant, right? Because he never told us. So what I think what he meant by this is that technology and ideas are not alone sufficient to create a successful product, right? So user experience needs to have everything in it, right? Not only technology and ideas, but also like placing users need on top, providing better customer support, right? So user experience is a whole package of providing a better service, providing a better product, right? It's just not the visual part. It's also how the user uses it and how user feels it, right? What kind of feedbacks they are getting from using the product, right? So as I said, user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction, right? Not only user interface, but how they feel, what feedback they are getting, what kind of services they are getting from the organization. Everything defines the user experience, right? That's what I think what Steve Jobs meant when he said user experience is summary of everything, right? Now, if that is user experience, then what is user interface, right? So user interface is a layer on top of user experience, which helps to achieve a better level of user experience, right? So user interface is a visual touch point layer where user can touch and play around. If we talk about websites, so buttons, tabs, dialog boxes, those are all part of user interfaces. If we talk about a handle in a door, then that handle is a part of user interface, right? That whole door with handle is a product, but handle is a part of user interface with which user can open or close the door. So that is user interface, right? So as a developer, we sometimes get confused and we see many people use term UX/UI developer, right? So no, that's not the thing. UX is a different thing. UI is a different thing. So I hope now you know the difference between UX and UI, right? Let's take an example of this cake. Okay, so you see there are three pieces of cakes, very nice looking cakes, right? And uh, each and every cake has a different topping on top of it, and they also have a different layers inside, right? Now if we look at this cake, can you tell me what is UX and what is UI in these cakes? Okay, without waiting, I will tell you. So if you see the layers inside cake, in the first cake, there are three layers, right? Four layers, pink, yellow, orange, and also pink again, right? So that is the main part of the cake, right? That is the UX. So when user is going to eat the cake, he is going to feel the taste from the base of the cake, right? And if you look at the second cake, it has a different kind of inner structure, right? And the third one is a cupcake. So it also has a different kind of inner structure. So this is how the so this all three cake has a main feature, which is a cake base, right? And if you see the icing on top of it, that is the visual touch point. It just enhances the look and feel of the cake. So that we can consider as an user interface. Now if some bakery or some restaurant serve only a naked cake with just the layers of the breads, it will not look nice, correct? It will taste good, but it will not look nice. And if you only eat the icing, the cream, right, it does not serve the whole purpose. It is not a full plate, right? So the icing and cake has to go in hand, right? So user experience and UI, they both go hand in hand, right? But they both are not same. I hope I'm making sense. Okay. So if we look at, let's say when we build a product, our goal is to enhance the user experience, right? And it can be enhanced in many ways, providing a better service, in adding more and more features, right? Providing better customer service once user has bought the product, right? So one way is enhancing one way is through user interface. So we are going to look at enhancing user experience through user interface. And we, as a web developer, when we talk about user interface, it is basically web pages, right? Okay, so our goal is clear, enhancing user experience. We are going to do it through user interface. Now, this user interface can be created using many approaches, right? And material design is one of that approach. And in material design, Material 3 is the latest version. And this material design is created by Google's team. It is open source, and you can create beautiful Android, Flutter, desktop and web applications using material designs. They have all set of predefined standards which you can use and create your applications. Okay. Now there are 3-4 main points of Material 3. So first is increased focus on personalization. If you all are using Android mobiles, you can see that you can change the look and feel and icon colors using just the wallpapers, right? You don't have to set a fixed color, right? So it gives you a feeling of more personalization, right? Then it also has updated theming. So it just creates whole thing from a single base color, right? It has new and improved components, and it focuses on motion and responsiveness, right? It focuses on smooth motion and responsiveness. Now I'm not a designer or a UX person, but I'm not going to dig deep into material design, but I just wanted to give you an overview of what is material design. Okay. So now again, looking back our journey, we saw that we're going to use user interface to enhance our user experience, and we are going to use material design. Okay, so we'll start with material design. We'll improve, we'll work on user interface, and we'll enhance the user experience. Correct. But there is a missing piece. So we have the design, but we don't have the elements, right, or the components. So that's where the Angular material comes into picture. So Angular material is also a library developed by Google's team, and it is an open source library. Uh, and they have created Angular components which follow and adhere to latest material design guidelines. Now, up to last month or last release, Angular material was supporting only Material 2 design, But with upcoming releases, Angular Material is going to provide a stable release of Material 3 design, and that's what we are going to look at. So you can explore all the components, what is Angular Material, how to install it. Everything is mentioned in its official website, which is material.angular.io. Okay. Talking about Angular Material, they provide high quality, versatile, and frictionless components. Now, what do they mean by frictionless? So frictionless means it Angular Material library easily integrates into Angular, and they have a tight version compatibility. So if you are using Angular version 15, you will be able to easily install Angular Material 15. So that's what they mean by frictionless. Versatile means they have lots of components to use, and high quality means they are maintaining design and unit test cases in such a way that components do not break. Okay, and you can also easily migrate to latest versions of Angular Material with help of schematics. And the base APIs, the design tokens and the styling are written in SAS. Okay, you can see all this code. This is open source. You can go to their GitHub repository and have a look around. Yeah. Okay, now talking about Material 3 in Angular Material. So as of the latest release, 17.2.0, right? Material 3 is still experimental, right? With next release, hopefully they are going to, with release of Angular 18, they are going to provide stable support of Material 3 design. And as of 17.2.0, Material 3 design is added as in one more styles, one more set of style functions, right? So this is just an heads up. If you're planning to use it in production, use it carefully, right? I would say just wait for the stability, right? But today we are going to explore how we can incorporate Material 3 using Angular Material, right? Okay, looking back at our journey, we had all three pieces, and the missing piece is going to be Angular Material. So we decided to use Material 3 design. We'll use Angular Material, which will help us to follow Material design, because as a developer, we don't want to worry about uh, designs, right? So through my Angular Material, we will work on user interface and we will enhance the user experience. So this is the bigger picture if we look at Angular Material and Material design, right? Okay, so okay, I think we have 4 minutes. Ahmed, how many minutes do we have?
I think, sorry. Yeah, I think you can still go on for 10 minutes more because you were also started late. So, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, 10 minutes are enough. Okay, so we are going to look at, we are going to create a simple project. I have already created a boilerplate project using Angular and Angular Material. Uh, and then we will set up Material 3 theme in it. Then we will create a basic application skeleton using the side nav and top nav bar. Then we will create some base placeholder pages. And then at last, we will also create a theme manager through which we can switch to light and dark theme. Okay. So you can scan this QR if you want to code with me. You can scan this QR code, and it has the link to the starter repository. And I'm also going to provide this QR code at the end. You can scan it and have it handy. You can go through the session again. The slides are also going to be available. So if you don't want to code now, just sit tight and enjoy the session. So once you have cloned, just switch to the at install deps branch, which has all the dependencies installed, Angular Material Experimental, and just switch to the folder, install the dependencies, and start the project. Okay. Now I have already followed all these steps. There are if you are not cloning, uh, uh, if you clone, you will receive an output like this. And if you are not cloning, you can follow these quick steps. You can use Angular CLI to generate new project. Okay, you can go into that project and you can add Angular Material, answer the questions like this, and then install Angular Material Experimental. Because as I mentioned earlier, Material 3 is still experimental. It is not stable. So we'll have to use this package. So this package is also part of official Angular Materials ecosystem. This is not developed by some other team. This is also developed by the same team who maintains Angular material library. Okay, fine. So once you have cloned the repo or you have created a new project, you should see the output similar to this. I'll share my another window. Yeah. So this is the output you will see. So this is my Visual Store window where in this window I have opened the browser, and I have also written down all the steps which we are going to follow. These steps are also present in the slides, but to avoid switching between code and slides, I have written all the steps over here. Okay. So we are now at the steps where we have installed all the dependencies. So first step is to set up the material theme. Okay. So to set up the material theme, we are going to use Angular material experimental package in our styles.scss file. So this is all placeholder code which you will see when you generate or generate the code using Angular CLI or clone the repository. Okay. So you can simply follow the steps which I have mentioned, and I'll remove the comments to make it easier. Okay. Okay. So right, we imported Angular Material Experimental. Okay, and we are going to use it as Matex. Next step is to create themes, light theme and dark theme using Material Experimental mixins. Okay, so we are going to create themes. So we'll simply override the already created themes and we'll use Matex mixins to create our light and dark theme, right? So now our light and dark theme are created, right? But we need to use this, right? Here, uh, M3 Angular theme is used, right? With M3 Material 3 design, the Angular team has made a change that you have to use this all components theme mixin in a selector. You can't use it without selector, right? So either you can keep HTML or you can keep root selector like root, right? But I'll keep it HTML, and we will use both the themes in it like this. Okay. So we created light and dark theme. We started using it inside HTML selector, and we also created one more class called dark, which will include dark theme, and it will also set background color using get theme color mixin. Okay. Now, if you look at this first mixin, it says all components themes, and if you look at second mixin, it says all component color, because the difference between light and dark is only colors, not the sizes, not the typographies. So that's why we are only using colors. If we use themes mixin over here, it will generate duplicate styles, right? So that's why we are using colors. Okay. Yeah. So we created a M3 theme, and we also set up to be used inside HTML selector. Now we'll use Angular Materials schematic to generate the navigation layout. Okay, so you can run this command and generate the layout as in core folder. I have already generated this. Let's take a look. So if you look at the layout, it will look like this. It will have a side nav. It will also have a side nav content. Right, in side nav content, it will just have a toolbar, and in side nav, it will have some dummy list of items. Right. So layout is created, but we need to use it. Right. So we'll go into app component, and we'll uh, remove this placeholder which I have already kept. If you clone the repo, and we will use the app layout. Okay, but it will give you an error because we have not imported it. So we'll go into app.component.ts, so we will import layout component. Okay, and we'll go back to this and let's see how does it look. So if we go back to browser, we'll wait for a minute. it's rebuilding. So in a minute, it will generate it. You will see that it will have the whole layout ready with left nav with top toolbar. Okay. Okay. To save the time. Oh, okay. It has completed running. Yeah. So as you can see, it has this left navbar and this toolbar. Okay, so the whole layout is now rendering. Okay, now in the layout, what we are going to do, we'll use it to render all the content. So it has a comment over here, add content here. So we'll simply say, just do a content projection project, whatever we provide in as an inner content to you. Okay, and in app component, we are going to use router outlet. So whatever are your routes, they will be wrapped under this app layout. Okay, right. So we created the layout and we did the content projection, right? And now we are seeing the layout, right? Now, uh, as you can see in the output, okay, this is rendering the default page which I have already created, dashboard page. But if you look at the output in the left nav and the right, the main content, it does not it is not easily distinguishable, right? So we'll try to follow the material Angular material themes mixins, SAS mixins, and we'll try to set up some colors over here. So what we'll do, as mentioned in the guideline, we'll create a new layout component theme.scss file which I have already created, right? And we will place this mixin over here, right? So what this will do is this is telling that the background color of side nav should be the surface bright color from the theme. Okay, now this value surface bright can be any other value. First let me complete this and I'll show you. So once we have set up the theme, okay, then we will use that theme in our main style file, because this theme file is created but we have not yet imported in our main styles file. So we'll have to import it first. Okay, so we imported, and then we are going to use that. We will pass that dark theme and light theme to our layout theme file. So as you can see, now I'm also including layout theme.theme, and I'm passing light theme, and even in the dark I'm including layout theme.theme, and I'm passing dark theme, right? Now let me save this. Okay, so going back to this mixing get theme color, here you can pass all the supported values. This is basically the rule of the color. So it can have surface bright, surface container, primary container. You can find all these possible role values in Angular Materials official website. I'll show it to you in a moment. Okay, it is still building. Yeah. Okay, let it complete the building. We'll move forward. Okay, next step is to create the basic placeholder pages. For this also we are going to use Angular Material schematics. You can simply run all these pages and it will create dashboard page, address form page, table page, tree, and drag and drop pages. Okay, so once you complete running all these commands, it will generate all the components like this. It will have an address form, it will have a dashboard, it will have drag drop, all the pages will be generated, right? Now next step is to add all these pages in the routes. So what we will do, we'll implement a lazy loading and we'll implement all the routes. So we'll simply go to app.route.ts and we'll copy paste this routes, right, which I have already done. So if you see over here, uh, by default it will redirect to dashboard and all other routes are predefined. Let's go back to, yeah, I'm not sure whether you can see, but the left nav is now somewhat more grayish because it has surface bright. I'm going to change it to a more prominent color. Let's say primary container, so that you can see that it has that primary color applied in the background. Okay. Now, moving forward, what we are going to do to the layout, we are going to provide all the routes. As you can see right now, it has dummy links, but we want to provide the actual pages link. So we'll simply import the routes in our layout component. Okay, and we'll import routes from app routes. We'll also import router link and router link active directives, which we are going to use in the template. Okay. And so you can see now it has the primary container color, right? So that's how you can change the colors using theme mixin. Okay. Okay. Going to template, for in template we are simply going to make a change, and in navigation list we'll simply iterate over all the routes, and we'll provide a router link and router link active directives over here, right? So this is done. Yeah, the compiler is taking bit of a time, that's why it's not identifying, but we have already imported router link and router link active. Uh, Oops, router link is pending, so we'll import router link, and now it should run fine. Okay, we'll come back to the output later on. Okay, now last step is to create a theme manager. So if you see, all the pages are created, right? Dashboard, address, table, tree, directory. If you visit the address page, you will see the address form. We'll go to table, you will see the table, right? If you go to tree, you will see the tree page, and there is also a drag drop. Okay, these are all created using Angular material schematics, and you can see they all follow material design guidelines. We are not doing anything special. If you can look at this card, if you can look at this menu pop over, right? So that is the advantage of using Angular material, right? They provide all the predefined components which follow Angular material guidelines. Okay. Fine. So last step is to create a theme manager. So what we'll do, so theme manager is a simple service which we will use to toggle light and dark theme. You remember we created a dark variant of our theme, right? But we are not using it anywhere. In the output, if you go and apply the dark class in HTML, you will see the dark theme applied, right? But we are going to provide a way to users so that they can easily switch between light and dark themes, right? So we'll create a theme manager service, which I have already created, I guess. Nope. So I'll create a new file. So in app, I'll create a new file, right? And this is going to be a very simple service. It will have one signal which will contain uh, light or dark values, and we are also creating a type called theme so that we can tightly bind the values of theme. Okay, let's import all the missing dependencies, right? And I have also created a toggle theme function. What it will do is it will simply update the signal based on its last value. So if last value was light, then it will return dark, otherwise light. Okay. Now this is done. But based on the toggle theme, we also need to apply dark theme class to our root element, right? So that also we are going to take care. Going back to steps. So what we are going to do, we are going to inject the document token, and then in constructor, we are going to listen on the updates of that signal. Okay. So yeah, so in constructor, I'm using effect hook. So hook is nothing but a helpful hook which will allow you to listen for changes into the signals which are used inside the effects callback. Okay, so I'm using theme signal. So whenever the theme gets changed, this effect callback will get executed. So if theme is dark, I'm adding the dark class. If it is not, I'm removing the dark class. So service is created. Now we need to use this service, right? So we are going to use this service in our layout component. So we'll simply import the service. Okay, we are going to import this service, right? And then we are also going to create a public property for this class, which will be theme. We are going to use this public property in our template, which is nothing but a clone of the theme property from theme manager service. And we also have a toggle theme function, which calls the toggle theme function of the service, right? Now, in the template, what we are going to do, in template, we are going to add a icon button, just a simple icon button with a dark and light mode variant, right? And I have a class applied called theme switch. It has a area label. It has a mat icon button. I'm telling it to use mat icon button, and I'm also applying mat tooltip. So to apply mat tooltip, I'll import mat tooltip module so that I can use mat tooltip, right? And yep, as you can see, I'm using theme signal over here. If it's light, I'm using light mode icon. If it otherwise, I'm using the dark mode icon, right? And what we can do, we can also apply some styling over here, just a basic styling so that it looks proper. So Mat toolbar has display flex by default. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell it to move this theme switcher to the extreme right. Okay. So I'll say margin left auto. Let's look at the output. As you can see, now we have theme, and we can also see toggle theme function. Now if I click over it, you can see it is changing the theme. So I'm using browser in VS Code. So I'm not sure whether it will open the inspect panel. Yeah, it does not. So it is not opening the inspect panel. But if you inspect the code, you will see the dark class added to the HTML element root of the document, right? So all the elements has dark theme, and if you switch back, it will have a light theme. Okay. Uh, yeah. So this was our basic exercise. Going back to slides. So slides also have the same steps mentioned. It is asking you to set up NC theme, then creating an application skeleton, right? Then applying theme, and I'm also showing an output how it should look. If you are trying to do this exercise at your home, you can verify your outputs, right? Then we created pages, right? Then we updated routes, and we also used those routes in layout, right? And after using routes, we saw this kind of output, right? And lastly, we created a theme manager service. So after applying theme manager service, it looked like this. Okay. So quick recap, we started with UX versus UI. Then we briefly looked into what is material design, not in depth, but a brief overview. Then we understood what is Angular material. They follow material design guidelines and they provide Angular components. And we did a whole live coding exercise where we used Angular material and applied material 3 theme to our application. And we also saw how to apply a dark theme variant. Yep. Uh, I think that's it. If you want to learn more about Angular and material design, I have a separate platform where I monthly write about Angular and material design, which is angularmaterial.dev. You can go over there and read all the articles. It is free, and I try to maintain the streak. I try to write a monthly one article. Yep. Okay. I don't think we have time, but maybe we can take a couple of questions quickly if anyone has any.
So, hi, Dam. So, thank you very much for this talk. It was really nice to
Sure,
listen to all these options, and I think we learned a lot from it today. So, we didn't have any comments here.
sure.
So,
Thanks.
yeah, then thank you very much for today. And yeah, we go now to the next speaker as we are
Thank
a
you.
bit late. Thank you very much. So, for our next speaker is Mina. He's a full stack software engineer at Fudos and has a good experience working with Angular, Flutter, Go, Node.js, and a lot of other things. He contributes to open source project, and today he will be talking about schema first approach of TypeScript's types design. So, Mina, welcome to stage.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very good.
Okay, we don't have that one happening today.
Yeah.
So it's funny when
So,
you need it, it doesn't work. Or unless it's
yeah, that's true. So I will add your slides now on stage.
yeah.
And yeah, enjoy, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Ahmed. So today's session is an approach I've been trying to improve, perfect, also learning from other people about. It's all about how to design TypeScript types. by starting from a schema. So before we can get into that, a little bit about me. So I am a web developer. I also write all things TypeScript newsletter, where basically I do a weekly newsletter trying to break down complex TypeScript issues into small TDBs that you can easily run in, like, I don't know, 10 minutes at most. So not a huge long write-ups. I'm also a Google developer expert for Angular, and generally a very curious person. So I like to learn, I like to do a lot of things here there on my free time. So, question about application data. So, what is application data? So, this is data within our application. So, where this could be data that we're going to be saving to the database. Could be form data. This could be any kind of data. And we have two ways of generally describing this. We have static types or TypeScript types. And this basically like define the shape of a data to be used within our application. And then TypeScript can use that data or that type, we define it to basically do type checking for us. And basically what this means is that by defining types, we're basically defining our own intention. And this means that whenever we do this, TypeScript can then check our code to make sure it shapes up to our intention of what we wanted to do. And this works very well for us to some extent, and can be able to eliminate like a whole host of or a whole class of bugs which happen when what we wanted to do and what we did are two different things, which is amazing. Then we have schemas, which basically do the same thing as types. And this means that we're defining the shape of data. Only that this time we're not using it for type checking, we're using it for validation. We're using it for checking whether a certain form the user entered, the data they entered is valid. And this means that we end up in a situation whereby we have duplication of data, whereby we have like the same data being described twice. So think of it this way: if we had like a form whereby we had to enter user details, we'd end up defining a schema first, whereby we want the form to be validated against us. So we have like let's say a name, email, and phone number field. And then we end up like defining on the other side, we end up defining the type for us so that we can use it within our application and make sure that we're using that correctly for that. And we're providing TypeScript with a template for that to basically be able to basically to be able to type check our code against that. This means we end up like having multiple places to update if something changes. If we added something like age, birth date, or something like that within our we wanted to introduce that such data within our application, we need to go and update the schema and then also go and update our type. And well, developers forget to do things, and this means that sometimes it gets out of sync. Sometimes it's not the end of the world, sometimes it is. And, or can introduce bugs that are weird or even break our application. So what if we could sort of like basically combine both, whereby we can get the best of both worlds? What this means is that we get static types, whereby we can say like TypeScript, take these types and use it to type check our code, so that you can basically use it within your functions, return types within your variables. And at the same time, also get back runtime validation. So this means that we get forms validation, can validate API or external data. And this can be great for us because we have like a single source of truth. This means that we don't have to have duplicated definition of the same shape of data. We basically have one, and then we derive the rest from it. And this is what I talk about. This is what I mean when I talk about schema first. So we'll get to the point why schemas. So I know a question may be wondering, why not TypeScript types? They already do up to that role of basically describing data. And they are very great for internal application data. What this means is that if you're defining like a variable that's a type that's always going to be an internal state of our application, that is never going to go to an API, that data is going to be exposed to the user just basically for, let's say, rendering things or representing the building up UX experiences, then they have that's very good, and you don't need a schema for that. However, they cannot replace schemas. What this means is that they are not available at runtime. So as you know, whenever you do a build or a compilation step, it means that TypeScript basically gets removes all the types, and then you have JavaScript. That means that this important data we have that's defining the shape of our data within our application, the types are not available at runtime for us to use and be able to type check that. So that means we need to sort of like provide some guide rails in different ways. Then there is also the issue of like no fine grade type checking, the validation. So this means is that in TypeScript, it's either a string, a number, an object, but it doesn't have like a mechanism to basically differentiate between a string that's a phone number and a string that's an email address and so on. So this means we need to have like extra logic to basically check whether the user entered the correct email address and so on. And this is not helping us up to this point. So, and this is where we come to our solution. And basically what this means is that we have like use schemas as like a source of truth, and then basically be able to say like, can we derive types from those schemas? And this is where we're going to see, I'm going to focus on two tools mostly for this session. And one of those is Zod, the other one is Valibot, but we can do the same with GraphQL, can do the same with other tools that exist that will be able enable us to be able to do generate TypeScript types from things like Postgres, data, among other areas. So, but the question is, why schemas? So one thing is that fine grade data validation. That means that we can check whether data is, we can do a better check of what the kind of data within our application. So if you look at the first example on your right, so that's a Zod schema that basically checks whether the name is a string, which we don't really care what kind of string it is. But for email, we care whether it has a length and whether it's an email. And then we have a phone number where we can use regex to basically check whether that's a phone number. And then we have a barrier, which is basically a number, but we don't care about that, so it could be optional. Below that, we have a variable schema that basically does that, and basically the same thing as that. No, on the top right, that's on the left, that's the Valibot one. On the bottom, that's the Zod schema that basically do the same thing. So as you can see, this is defining. So if we are to basically break down this into a TypeScript type, it means that we have like a name, email, phone, barrier. The problem is we don't have like this added contextual information like can we validate whether it's an email address? Can we validate whether it's a phone number? Can we do a fine-grained check to check the type of data within the field other than whether it's just a string? So we talked about validation or fine-grained validation. The other thing is runtime validation. What this means is that we can use these schemas within our forms. We can use these schemas to make sure that the user we are getting the data we are getting from the API is valid, and then we get type data that we are sure that conforms to what we want. And then we are also able to embed more information to the schema so that we can have the error messages for if the data we have fails validation. We're able to basically say check whether it conforms to that aspect of it, so that we're able to basically provide additional information like this is not a valid email address, this is not a valid phone number, and so on and so on. All this item does not meet the certain rules that we set to it. So this means that we're able to do these checks and we're able to basically provide more information to the user, but at the same time having all of them from at the central place. And this is the most important thing, that why it's possible at the moment to do schemas as like the single source of truth, and that is that nowadays we have tools like Zod, Validobot that are able to give us static types from like our schemas. So on your left, we have like a user schema from a Zod object. So in this case, we are defining basically the same data. So a name, email, phone number, and we are doing some validation in it. So I dropped the phone number reject validation just so that I could fit in within the slide a little bit better. But generally now we can basically say now we need a type of user and then infer from that schema. And basically the screenshot on the left, the code snippet on the right, I know where you're facing, but I guess on the right is where the kind of data, the kind of type you get back from from Zod after doing this. So this means that when we define the data within Zod, we are able to basically go in there and basically say, now give us static types that we can now use within our application. We can pass in within our functions and basically use that to pass in. So for instance, if we say function add user, then we have a user object, then we can type it collected to user, but without having to define a separate object for a separate type for user, but instead infer that from the user schema. We have a second example for Valibot, which basically does the same thing, and then we infer that on the right. On the right of the screen, the second snippet. And so basically what we are doing here is basically defining a Valibot schema and then telling Valibot to infer or give us a user type that we can use within our application similar to the Zod schema. So this works very well. I'll look at briefly at near the end, which we are getting to about at tools that we can use basically to do this, and that we can expand this on top of like Validbot and Zod, which are very great for basically the kind of data or the kind of, for those people who are not using application or who are not using something like GraphQL. But we look at tools when if you're using like GraphQL, you have other options like the GraphQL Codegen and then Hasula. So we look at those a little bit later. Basically, a brief discussion. So here within the last few slides, we have seen like we are getting the best of both worlds. All this means is that we have runtime type checks or validation. All this means is that before with TypeScript, we are getting like a compile time type checking, whereby data the TypeScript compiler tries to its best to basically type check the data we have based on the information we have provided to it. But when we use schemas, we can now go an extra step whereby we can basically say this data query a certain API, and instead of just using that data assuming like it's correct, we can basically do a runtime validation of that data, and now we can be extra confident that that data conforms to the kind of data we expected from the API. And if it doesn't, we can throw an error or handle that in a more graceful way. Secondly, we get static types for TypeScript because TypeScript has its own amazing benefits, that is type checking. So we're able to catch a lot of errors at compile time. We're able to catch typos. We're able to catch things like that. And this means that we're able to basically continue having the benefit of TypeScript. And then the third one, which is huge for me, it means we have a single source of truth. This means we don't have code duplication, and this means that things are not going to get out of sync because someone updated the schema and forgot to update the TypeScript type, or someone updated the TypeScript type and forgot to update the schema. In large projects where like things can be a little bit disorganized as the project grows and scales out, it gets out of hand. This thing had to happen, and to take some hold or someone to catch it before being fixed. And then lastly, and this is another important aspect of doing it this way, is that we have what I call granular data validation. So on top of like being able to check whether is this a string, is this a phone number, is this a reject of a certain pattern, we can be able to basically do that and basically go beyond like validating whether it's a string. We can now know what kind of string is this. Is this an email address? Is this a phone number? Or so and so on. Is this between 1 and 100? So that our data always conforms to what we expect it to be. So I talked about tools. So for this session, so we talked about Zod and Valibot. And these are two tools which I've covered in my newsletter, All Things TypeScript, and I'll add a link to the newsletter at the end. I think that's the next slide, so you're getting to near that. And then we have GraphQL CodeGen. This is a tool I have used extensively in the past, whereby we define GraphQL schemas. And what this does is that it takes those schemas and then you can generate API types. You can generate, you can use annotations or GraphQL directives to basically embed additional data to generate things like database data types, and you can customize it to the whole extent whereby basically this data is used to basically where you can basically use the schema as a single source of truth, and then make sure that your application or anything that's related to that data that's going and interacting with the API has a single source of truth, so that you ensure that you don't have your TypeScript types starting to get out of sync with your schema. And then we have Hasura, which is another one for GraphQL that's similar to that, but I think this is based on Postgres, and basically tries to use the schema to basically try and generate the Postgres schema for you, and then you also get TypeScript types from that. And this is good for your application because it means that all your schema, you're not defining your types, or you're not defining your types and defining your schema. You're basically defining your schemas and then you're defining your types. So this is the kind of flow I'm trying to encourage, or trying to get you towards thinking about as a way of defining your application types, so that your types are always generated from a single source of truth, instead of having duplicated data whereby you are able to basically duplicate data whereby you can you have a chance of that getting out of sync with each other, which is not great. And this happens a lot more than you think, because one day you're onboarding a new developer and you're like, oh, we need to add this feature in here, please go and do that. And they don't know the types, they know TypeScript types exist, and they're going to try and update that, but they don't know the schema exists, so they're probably going to forget and do that. So you need to be able to make sure that things like these don't happen a lot. There are so many other tools that you can do this. I think the other day we have I think it's called Type Schema by the Microsoft team, that basically tries to give you a way to define your schemas in a way similar to TypeScript, that basically allows you to define your APIs in a TypeScript way, and then you can get that data in TypeScript and generate TypeScript types from that. I'll be covering that in the future. I haven't had a chance to do that. So that's it for me. So to recap a little bit about the last 14 slides, or more like 12 slides. We tried to look at why you might want to change your mentality a little bit in terms of how schemas are defined. So we don't have this is not trying to market a single tool. I'm not trying to tell you to use Zod, to use Valibot, to use GraphQL, to use this. It doesn't matter which tool you're using. What matters is that you think about how you can basically make your life a little bit easier and define data in a way, define your data shape in a single place, and then have types gets derived off that, instead of having it in two places and you have to always keep two places in sync. That's it for me. And so that's a QR code for my newsletter. I have an article, an issue for Zod, and I have an issue for Volleybot, and I'll be covering more and more of this. So I think next week on Monday, I'll be doing a similar issue that basically gets all what I've talked over the last few minutes into a single package that's nice, with a few examples that are great in a way that is hard to capture in that minute session. And then we continue covering other similar topics, whereby we try and show you how you can basically do this kind of approach using different tools. So at some point, I'll probably be looking at type schema. At some point, I'll be looking at GraphQL and so on, among other TypeScript topics. That's it for me. And if anyone has a question, I'll be willing to answer. I think may have a few minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And if not, I hope you learned something in this session. And I hope I did not go very fast.
So thank you very much, Mina. I think, no, you didn't go fast. It was really good. So everything was understandable. It was a really nice presentation. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
We are also a bit late for the schedule. So now we go directly to the next talk. Thank you very much, Mina. So yeah, our next talk is from Serkan. So Serkan is actually has a goal to assist others through blogging, mentoring, and architecture, Angular and TypeScript. He's a German software engineer, and yeah, Serkan. So welcome to the stage. How are you doing?
So, hi. I didn't know how to start. But you press the magic button. So
yeah, exactly.
I had the button present, and yeah, I don't know.
No, I have the power.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being here. I think so today. Not I think I know. So Serkan will be talking to us today about TypeScript Never Type. So it's the invisible force shaping in code. So yeah, the stage is yours. So if you want to share your screen, I can put your screen also.
Yeah, we did not test. Let me make a test. So when I click present, I have to press present, right? The present button.
Exactly.
Okay, let me try present. Oh, okay. I can directly present from Google Slides.
Slides, yes, exactly.
Okay, let's make a test. So sorry, guys. So okay, let me try. Okay, can I? So just a second. Okay, again. Okay. Ah, cool, nice. Okay. Can you see something?
Not yet.
Ah, okay. It's in progress. Just a second.
Yeah. Now I can add it on stage directly. Yep. Now we see everything.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Nice. Oh. I'm not sure. I have links on my slides, and when I press on it, it will not work, right?
No. So if you are just sharing the slides, then this will not work. Then you need to share your screen as a whole.
Yeah, then let me share my screen.
Then
okay,
I will move it again.
Okay. Yeah. Be patient, guys.
I think everything is good.
Okay, so let me. Yes.
So now you are sharing two screens.
Oh, two screens.
But yes, I will add only the.
Okay. Then let me
screens.
stop. Let me stop again. Yeah, it's we hadn't the time to test.
Yes.
Okay, I cannot present. I cannot share in the presentation mode, right? It's also not possible. Okay. Okay, then I have to do some freestyle. Okay, so
I'm there. So if you want to change, also we can. Yeah. Okay. So which screen should I share? The screen or the slides? Should I show?
Okay, yeah, that's nice. You can share the slides.
The slides. Okay. So now it's the slides.
Okay, when I switch the tab, you okay, nice. Okay.
So if you want to get the screen, just tell me. I will show it.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Then I will.
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah. Just a minute. So it's my first ever conference. So, Yeah. So I have my notices. Just a second.
Mhm.
Okay, I think we can start. I
Sure.
see myself. Yeah. Hi. Hello, world. Hello, humans. Yeah, I'm talking about the never type. Yeah, the invisible force which shapes the code in TypeScript. Believe or not, but the never type is omnipresent. Actually, yeah, around your code, whether you recognize it or not recognize it, the never type is always in your code. And yeah, I want to share my perspective of the never type without going too much into the deep. It's more high level, so that everyone can grasp about what I'm talking. And so yeah, we will talk about also about edge cases and never type. And yeah, it's the never type is not boring, so it can do a lot. So let's start. If you don't know, the never type is the bottom type of all the types in TypeScript. So yeah, it cannot take any types or yeah. Let me yeah. I have to breathe, so my heart is pumping a lot, so I have to cool. I have to calm down. So the never type is the bottom type in TypeScript, so it cannot take any type. So it's not. It's a subtype of all the types. Yeah. So let's continue to the more interesting part. Actually, not me, but the next slide is more interesting. So I'm Serkan. I'm a senior software engineer working in Hamburg for Avodac, and yeah, that's it about me. So the never type can result from an implicit or from an explicit behavior. So we will see when an implicit or what's an explicit behavior is. So implicit means that TypeScript uses never when it cannot find a matching type for a value. This occurs, for example, in cases where the code cannot be narrowed down to any other specific type. So that means, like in the context of implicit, you don't have to do anything, not explicitly, you just use TypeScript and then it just appears never, and you don't know why it appears. So this is when TypeScript says, okay, this is never. So we will look into some examples, and then you guys will understood what I mean with implicit. Like without doing anything, you can produce a never type. Like without typing never, it will produce a never type. Then we have that explicit the explicit behavior, like that means when we as a developer explicitly write never, like in generics, when we want to when we want to have some control flow in our types, like is a value or is a type what we pass let's say like a condition. So it's is a type fulfilled what we expect, then it should do nothing, otherwise it can land in never. In the slides or in the code examples, I'm using the typesetting conventions. Maybe you heard about that. So when you use the //// and then the roof and then the question mark in your code, then in the playground of TypeScript, you will see the type from the compiler. So this calls 2/ queries. This is what I will use in all the examples. Actually, there's one sentence, a big sentence in TypeScript, and when you keep this in mind, then you will understand in which situations the never type will appear or not, or will not appear. So because never is a subtype of every type, this is not important, but the never type is always omitted from union types, and it is ignored in functional return types inference as long as there is other type being returned. So this is actually the sentence what you can keep in mind. It's always omitted from union types, means when you have a never in your union types, then it will be ignored. Or if you it will be ignored in function return types as long nothing else will be returned. So let's look into our first example. Just a second, I have to jump to the slide. Yeah. Okay, how can I jump I can it's not possible to click to the link, and I clicked to the link, but it's I cannot
It's not opening, or it's opened on your screen
it's
but not
opening,
showing?
but it's opening but not
So I can add to the stage this screen, the other one, but also this has the presentation.
Okay, can you see when I jump between them? Does it change?
No. It gets darker, and then so maybe just move to the other one and keep it there.
Okay, it works.
Yeah.
Just a second. Yeah. It's now it works.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is our first. Example. Okay, this I opened the link, but it doesn't open. This is weird. Can I not switch between the slides? Not the slides, but I opened a link, but this link will not be streamed.
So did you share the whole screen, or only you shared the Chrome or the browser?
Oh, I don't know.
Can you just stop the streaming? I'll remove it now. Just stop the stream and then share the whole screen.
I did it actually.
Okay, now I can see our browser tab. Yeah, exactly. Now I can see. So okay, here we have everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys. So now we will look into so based on that statement, what we have from
Hello?
TypeScript. Hello. Santosh?
Yeah, hey, hi.
Yeah, sorry for the I had trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, based. So actually, we are talking about when you see the never type. When you see the never, in which situation you will see the never type, in which situation you will not see the never type. So based on that statement, what we have from TypeScript. Let's look into our first real world example. It's not yeah. This is our first. Oh, yeah. This is our first real world example. As you can see, this function here produces an error, and it also returns, and it also can return some random string, and actually you not seeing that, but actually this is returning a string and a never type, so it's not obviously. It shows it returns a string, but in our next example, we will break down the example in order to confirm and prove the statement from TypeScript. As you can see, let me. So as you can see, when we have just an error, so every error in the code produces a never return type in a function, and this is a statement in TypeScript, and at the point where you start returning something different, it disappears, as you can see. So the result is number, and never is gone. And if just the error stays in the function, it becomes never. This is where you encounter the never type. So this is what I meant with implicit behavior. So actually, you are not writing implicitly or explicitly never type, so it appears and disappears based on the control flow in a function. Yeah, then people think it's a like common misconception that the never type is only returned when no value is passed to the generate UUID. This is also not true. This is not a runtime behavior. This is a compile time behavior. It does not change the behavior, so it doesn't mean, so when you pass a string to a function, and then it will return. So let's say when we pass nothing, it will return a string, or I'm so. My heart is going. I have no breath. I'm sorry. Just a second. I will go to the next slides. The never type. That there are some edge cases. The never type. The never type appears only in function expressions and not in function declarations. As you can see, we have two functions. One is f and one is h, and the f is a function expression. When you call the function, you will get never. In function declaration, if you call the function, you get void. This is an edge case. So if you work, if the never type is really something which is interesting for you in your control flow, then use function expressions and not normal functions or declarations. There is some statement on Stack Overflow about that. So the difference is that so based on this slide, like we have one function expression, it's called at, and the other function expression called pair. So the difference is that that at is a function expression, where pair is a function declaration. So when a function is shown only, it gets a type never if it's an expression, and void if it's a declaration. Union types and the never. Union types and never. Now we are on the situation where we explicitly write by ourselves the never type, or when we use built-in types. So we will look into some example. Oh, wrong. Okay, I have the wrong. The wrong code example. Okay, it doesn't matter. We will do some live coding here. Oh, just a second. So we have the built-in function. It's called in TypeScript. We have that exclude function. So we can exclude something from the union type. Like let's say we have Boolean, we have a string, and we have a number, and we want to exclude, let's say, the Boolean from that union type. So this union type, we want to exclude the Boolean. As you can see, it's excluded, but under the hood, what TypeScript is doing is something like this. It in short, it excludes the Boolean and produces something like this here. So Boolean, string, and never. And as you can see, the type is string Boolean. So even if you type never, it will be ignored, or it disappears from the union type. So oh, actually, it's here, the missing code snippet. So this is what we see as a as this is what we see as a developer, like the exclude function, it's excluding out the Boolean, or it's extracting something, but under the hood it uses some kind of expression in order to filter out or extract types what we want. This is what we see. Very simple actually, but TypeScript is seeing this here. So there's some how to say, so TypeScript is just distributing the types internally to many, like when we pass something, then it will distribute it to that in the first step. So it's a string, it's a number, it's a never. In the second step, it will resolve all the types. So string, number, never is still visible. And then, as we can see, the never type will be ignored or it disappears. So infinite loops and never type. So the return type after an infinite loop from a function always results in a never. So as you can see, when you use a while loop or a for loop in your function, it results in never type. And as we said before, like the sentence, it's ignored in function return types inference as long as there's other types be returned. So so same example here. We have a loop, and I mean, actually you cannot return after a loop, but this is just an example. As you can see, as long we return something different, then the never type disappears again. So when we remove this line here, you will see never, and when I return something, it becomes a return type. So so we learned that when we have we learned now that when we have when we throw an error in a function, then it becomes never, and at the point where we return something different back in a function, then it will become that type. And the same behavior we will see in loops. So when we have a loop in a function. Yeah. We saw that all that things are happening at compile time, not at runtime. As I said, everything is on compile time, and when things which cannot be changed at compile time will always result in a never. But there are some cases where you have a loop which is actually infinite loop, but because of it runs at the runtime, it will not run. It will not result in a never. This is in that case. So because the infinite primitive, or the infinite primitive. I don't know how to say what it is, but we have some runtime primitive in JavaScript. It's an infinity type or infinity value. So it's something which runs at runtime, not at compile time. And because you can change this this value, you can change this value, you will never get the never type. So as you can see, the result is void and not never, and this is because of I think on the window. You see, we can override them with 10, and then it's not infinite anymore. So that's why TypeScript wants to be safe, and that's why they ignore the infinity value. TypeScript tries to mirroring JavaScript as much as possible. There's also some cases where we encounter the never type. As you can see, I mean, we always know object keys, and object keys results in empty array, and the same we have in TypeScript. So key off, when we say the key of an empty object, as you can see, it's results in a never, and we can say object keys of something which has something, then it leads in some you will get the keys of the object, and the same we can apply on at a compile time on an object, and we will also get the key unions of that object. There's a practical useful use case for the never type. All the cases what we saw is like you write you throw an arrow and then you see the never type, or you have a loop, you see the never type. You return something from the arrow or from the loop, and then the never type disappears, or the never type disappears when you use the generic built-in functions, or when you write your own generic built-in when you write your own generic functions which has conditional types where you produce a lot of unions and also nevers, and then so the never disappears. So this is most devs are not running in that situation, but there is one good practical useful use case where you can use never type. It's about let's say you have a function which saves vehicles, and in that function you handle that in a switch case. So let's say you have a car type, and you have aircraft type, and you have a bicycle type, and in our first example we have the union. How to say so we have a type of vehicle which contains car and aircraft, and we are handling we handled all that cases in our switch case, and as long as long everything will be handled in a switch case, everything is fine. So like when we handle the car, so we get the types for the car. When we handle the aircraft, we get the aircraft. And because of vehicle contains just car and aircraft, everything is fine. And in the default case, the vehicle becomes never, can be assigned to never, nothing happens. And then at some point, a colleague is introducing a new type, let's say bicycle, and now our vehicle contains bicycle additionally to car and aircraft. And what happens in our default case, we get an error at runtime. So vehicle is not never anymore, it becomes bicycle. So now I have to handle that case as well. And as we can see, the error in the default case disappears, it becomes never again. Yeah, thanks. That's it, actually.
Okay, thank you very much, Serkan. So this was, a lot of information that we got. So thank you very much for this. And now we can. This was the last talk today before the break. So we have a break of 1 hour. Okay, less than 1 hour, so 45 minutes now. And we'll be back with our next talks. So we have 3 more talks. Thank you very much, Serkan. No, it was really, really good. So I really learned a lot of things from it also. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, it was good, really. So thank you very much, guys. And see you soon. Bye. Hello, everybody. So welcome back to the this last half of this conference. Now I would like to introduce you the next speaker. He's a coder, open sourcer, developer experience enthusiast, and a software architect and entrepreneur. He will talk to us today about our new best friend. So back-end, front-end without duct tape. So welcome back on stage, Noam. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Ahmed. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Everything's good. Thank you for being here. I know that you faced a lot of things just to be here on this talk. So thank you very much for trying to make it.
Yes, it was a bit of a challenge, and I'm in a hotel in a connection flight, but let's see what we can do in these surroundings.
Thank you very much. So I will give you the stage now. I will add your slides. So here they are, and I will be away. Good luck.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much. So hi, everybody. I'm Noam, and just to present myself a little bit, I'm a coder, I'm a developer, although I'm the owner of a company and a CEO and a consultant, but most days I just like to develop code. And I've been part of application modernization projects for the last 20 years, applications with hundreds of tables and thousands of forms. And when you work on such large applications, you start to see a pattern emerge. And I kind of feel that that pattern hasn't had enough treatment in the IT world today, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm lazy, super lazy. I don't like doing things twice. I don't like working hard. I'm also very error prone, so I need tools to protect me from myself. And I'm impatient. I like to get things done and get them done fast. So the kind of applications that I usually deal with are what we call CRUD applications. Those are CRMs, ERPs, manufacturing, insurance. And this kind of application has many, many tables and needs a lot of CRUD operations. Now, let's see what's the basic things we need to do to get a CRUD operation working. We need a server and a front end. Today, we're going to use Node.js for the server and React for the front end. We're going to define types on the backend and types on the front end. We're going to have API routes on the backend for put, post, delete, and we're going to have code that consumes them using Axios or using Fetch or what HTTP client of Angular. We'll have data validation on the API and also data validation for the users where they can see the errors and respond to them in the front end. We need to have access control, authorization queues, ORM, paging, sorting, real-time routes, components. That's it. That's all you need to know to create a very basic CRUD application. Okay? And I think that's annoying. I think that's too much. And when you look at it, I think that these concerns are kind of a socket and a plug. They're a mirror image of one another. And the problem with that is, first of all, it's duplicate code, which is always wrong. But also, many of the times I will update one and forget to update the other. For example, my bank, the biggest bank in Israel, has validation in the front end that prevents me from getting data older than 6 months. But if I go to the API, I get whatever I want. Also, that code is repetitive. You get this code, boilerplate code copied around and around with the mistakes, with the vulnerabilities, with the errors. And I really don't like boilerplate code. Now, modern full-stack frameworks such as Next.js, Nux, Velkit, Solid, Start, whatever, started addressing these issues, but just a little bit. They just covered the server actions, the API calls, but not the entire idea of a CRUD application. And I just thought that all of these concerns are a reflection of a business entity. It can be a customer, it can be an order, and all of these are just different perspectives in which we view that entity. And I just want it to be all in one place. So with that idea, several years ago, I've created a package called Remalt, wrote several applications with it, decided to open source it. It's used heavily in production, and we've released it to the world about a year and a half ago with documentation and everything. And I'm going to show you how it works today. So this talk is mostly a live coding talk. So from a second from now, you're going to see code. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a front-end React app and turn it into a full-stack app with database, with authorization, authentication, deployment, everything. And we're going to do it in the short period of time that we have. So to quote a smart guy, show me the code. So over here on the left, we have Visual Studio Code. And I'm running Vite. I'm guessing all of you know what Vite is, but just to recap a little bit, Vite is a development server that gives me hot reload functionality, which means whenever I change my code, it automatically refreshes the browser. And it also bundles my code when it's done. So here we have a very basic React app. Let's review the app. So in our app, we have an array of tasks. And these are the tasks that you see here on the right. The state is front-end state. So if I refresh everything, every change that I make is lost. Later, we're going to make it into a full-stack app. We have the new title functionality. So I can put some text over here and add a new task. But of course, again, nothing is saved because the state is a front-end state. We have the ability to set tasks as completed and delete tasks. So I can say completed and deleted, which is nice. And then I can set all completed or all deleted. And here we have the HTML for everything. The form, the tasks, and the buttons at the footer. So that's a very basic React app. And the first thing I want to do is create a backend for it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to head over to the source directory. I will create a backend directory. And in it, I'm going to create an index.ts. I'm going to use Express. Which I will import here. And I'm going to say app get /hi backres hello TIL. So very basic React app, very basic Express app, sorry. And what I'm going to do next, just like I'm using Vite to hot reload the front end, I can use Vite to hot reload the backend. To do that, I'm going to go to my Vite config. I'm going to import the Express package. And then I'm going to use it saying that the Express app is in source backend. Okay. So now if I head over to /hi, we're going to get our route working. Perfect. So now that we have a Node.js server, let's start using it. In our application itself, we can see that the prominent type is task. We use it everywhere, and that describes our business entity. If we head over to the task, we can see that our task has an ID, a title, completed and created at. Now, the first thing I want to do is share it between the front end and the back end. So to do that, I'm going to add a shared folder, and I'm going to drag and drop the task to that folder. Now, I want this class or this task to be my entity, my single source of truth. I want it to represent my database, my API, my front-end query language. And to do that, I'm going to give it a few decorators. The first one is called entity. And I'm going to ask it to expose all the CRUD routes. Later, I'll restrict that, but for now, it's a good start. I'm going to tell it that the ID is a CUID, the title is a string, the completed is a Boolean, and the created at is a created at. The next thing I want to do is define the API. So I'm going to head over to our index on our server, and I'm going to say const API equals import remult express and use that. And I'm going to tell remult express that its entities are the task and any other entity that I will add in the future. Next, I will ask our express asp to use our API. And as soon as I do that, I can go to /API/tasks, and I can see an empty array of tasks. I can also do it with a normal HTTP call, a tool like Thunder Client, where I'll go send a request and see an empty task array. Now, it doesn't only support GET. We said that we want to support all CRUD capabilities, and we configured that over here. So we can go here and also make a post call and send a body. And when we do that, we can see that the server automatically assigned the CUID based on the definition, update the created at based on our definition, and set completed to false. And if we refresh here, we'll see that we get that information back. Perfect. Now, as fun as it is to look at this as JSON file, Remult has a very cool feature that I like using, which we call admin. When we set admin to true, we immediately get an admin console that we can trigger by going to API admin that shows me all the entities. It even shows me a diagram where I can later show the relation between the entities. And for every entity, I can make whatever operation I want. I can add a new task, and it will save it to our database. Now, you may ask yourself at this point, first of all, let's indicate the usage of this. It's super helpful to use something like this when you're developing because you want to look at your data, you want to change your data. The difference between this and using any other SQL viewer is that this actually relies on your API routes. So it will be restricted by your validation and by your authorization, and you can actually test your routes with it, which makes it very, very useful. Perfect. Next, I want to go and input a few tasks. So I'm going to head over to our app TSX, and I'm too lazy to type, so I'm just going to copy this array. And I'll head over to our request and place it here. And as soon as I send that, we can see the data appearing over here, and we can also see it in our admin console. And since we took it away from our app, we can see now that our page is empty. Now, you may ask yourself at this point, which database are you using? And we haven't configured any database yet. So Remult has a very cool feature that before you configure a database, you have a basic JSON file that is super useful to look at your data. And we can see it in our DB folder, and we can see the task JSON. Later, of course, we'll graduate and use a real database, but this is very useful because we can view the data and feel it in our hand, which is something I really like doing. Great. So just by defining these 5 decorators, we got a fully working database and API routes. Now let's go ahead and consume that in the front end. And the first thing I want to do, I want to reuse the same task type in my front end. So to do that, I'll define a task repo member, which is going to be repo of type task. This returns to me a repository of type task, which I'll use to get data from the backend, to update data to the backend. And it will be responsible to all of that, but since it's using the same task type, it's fully typed and consistent to my API on the backend. So if I change something in the API, it immediately affects the front end as well. So I'm going to add here a use effect, and I'm going to say task repo find then set tasks. And we can see the tasks from the backend in our browser. Let's open the network tab, refresh it, And we can see that it's just a normal REST API call. Super simple, super easy. And it's too big. Great. Now, obviously, getting also data from the backend is easy, but it doesn't really make sense. In most cases, when you have millions of rows, we need to do paging, sorting, filtering. And since these operations repeat themselves in any applications that we write, it's actually built in with Remult. So I can say here, limit 3, and it will show me only the top 3 rows. I can say page 2 or page 3. And we see that it's normal REST API request. Super simple to read and follow. We can also say order by, created at, descending, to sort descending on the backend, or ascending, and we get back and third. And again, super simple REST API calls. We can also filter on the backend, saying where completed is true or false. And since we're sharing the type, we actually get end-to-end type safety. So if I'm going to make this a string, I will immediately get a TypeScript error that I cannot assign string to a Boolean. So with just these simple 5 decorators, I got a full stack query language. Now let's go ahead and implement the CRUD functionality. I'm going to implement insert. So I'm going to say await task repo insert. And I don't need to set all of these because, sorry, I don't need to set all of these because they're automatically set on the backend. I will also set save when a task changes. And delete in our delete method. And that's it, 3 lines of code in total. And now I can delete tasks that I don't want. And we can see that a delete call is being sent to the backend. I can add a new task. And it will be added at the end. And we can see that a post call was being made over HTTP. And I can update its value. We can see that it updates, and I can delete it. That's simple. We got a fully working end-to-end database, ORM, API calls, front-end query language, full support for CRUD with just a few lines of code. Now, at this point in time, our users liked our application so much that they actually gave it to another user. And that other user opened the data and said, let's change a few values. But user number 1 didn't see those changes. And that's kind of annoying for users. We understand as developers that users need to refresh, but users a lot of times don't understand that. And they say things like, we are looking at the same page of data. How come we're not seeing the same changes? And the phrase I love the most, Google can do it. Why can't you do it too? So the entire thing about Remult is taking complex implementation details and abstracting them into something that is simple to use as a developer. So for me to add live query capabilities here, it's a simple code change. I'm going to head over to our use effect, and instead of find, I'm going to use live query. Instead of then, I'm going to use subscribe. And subscribe gets an info object that I can use to apply the changes to our task array. Now, since you want to unsubscribe when the component unmounts, I'm going to return it here. We're going to return the result of the subscribes. It will automatically unsubscribe. And that's it. As soon as we do that, both users can look at the same data, and the changes affect both users. Now, the implementation details behind it are kind of not relevant because it's an adapter pattern which you can change to anything you want. So by default in development, we use server-sent events, HTTP server-sent events. There's also adapters for WebSockets or for Ably if you want to use the cloud provider. It's going to be adapters for PubNub, and you can create your own adapters. So it's super, super easy. But you can get these kind of things done quick and out the door. Great, so we've covered setup, entities, paging, CRUD, and live query. And next we come to validation. And validation is again one of those concerns that we always get wrong. I sometimes would fix it on the API, but forget to fix it for the user, or the other way around. And I want it to be in just one place, in my single source of truth, in my task. So, for example, I want to set the title as required. So all I need to do is say here required true. And as soon as I do that, if I try to add an empty task, I'll get an error. Now, check out the network tab. This is front-end validation. No network calls are being made. So let's try to bypass that and make an API call. And we get the same error over here on the API. Notice that the error is structured in a way that I have the error for every input. That way I can later use it and put the correct error next to the correct input in my HTML. Now, required is easy. What about custom code? Not a problem. So let's go ahead and make custom validation here. I can say validate task if task title length is greater than 2 or too short. And as soon as I do that, I'll get the front-end validation running in the front end, and I'll get the same validation running in the backend. This arrow function actually runs both on the backend and the front end, getting consistent validations between the front end and the backend. The next topic on our list is updating multiple tasks. Our users want to go and set all completed, and we want to implement that. And users usually talk to me in front-end terms, so I'm going to do this on the front end. I'm going to head over to the set all completed, and I'm going to say, okay, let's iterate all the tasks and update them with the completed value. And as soon as I do that, here we go. My user is happy. I am happy. But my responsible boss, not so much. Because my responsible boss says, look at the network tab. Look how many network calls are you making for a simple update. What if you had 10,000 tasks? This would never scale. And I say, don't worry, I'm using Grimald. That's the fun of using Grimald. And the entire idea behind Grimald is I don't have to switch heads or hats between the backend and the front end. I can take the same code that I've written here and use it on the backend. So let's go ahead and copy this and move it to the backend. I'm going to create a controller class. And I'm going to say export class task controller. And I'm going to place the set all completed here. I'm going to make it static. And I'm going to decorate it with the backend method decorator. And as soon as I do that, backend method indicates to Remalt that whenever you're about to call this code in the front end, don't call it in the front end and make an API call to the backend and run it there. Now, all I need now is to define a task repo just like before. But if previously the task repo made HTTP call to the backend, now that I'm running on the backend, the task repo will make SQL calls to SQL or Mongo calls to Mongo. So I'm using the same style of writing on the front end and the back end. I don't have to switch hats. I don't have to switch my mental state, my mental perspective. Same idea, same code, and I can have fun. Let's go ahead and register it on our API. And in our front end, all I need to do to call this is simply say task controller set all completed with the value. So now, let's clear the network tab. We can see that I've made an error. Probably forgot to save something. Let's see. Ha ha ha. Let's see what have I forgotten. I forgot to do a wait here. And now we can see that this is an actually live coding session. That's why we can see mistakes. But as you can see now, when I click the button, we get one call to the backend and everything runs. So it's super easy to move code between the front end and the backend. And the fun here is that, again, we are sharing the types. So if I change this to a string, I will get a typing error. Now, this is similar to React Server Actions, but it has so many advantages to it, and it works not just with React, but with anything else. So far we've been using our nice, JSON database, and now it's time to update, to grow up and use a real database. For this demo, I want to use Postgres, so I'm going to head over to our index.ts, and I'm going to import create Postgres data provider. And I'm going to tell Remalt Express that its data provider is a Postgres data provider. And I'm going to give it a connection string that I've prepared in advance. And as soon as I do that, we can see that the server is started and I don't have any data because there's no data in our servers. And if we open here, we can see that it created the table of tasks. Of course, this is optional, but I really like it that it creates these things automatically. And once I do that, I can add more tasks. and those are now added to our Postgres database. And I'm lazy, as I said before, so I'm going to run again the arrays that we had over here, and I have all the tasks over here. So we've done setup, entities, paging, CRUD, live query, validation, update, database, and the next thing we need to talk about is authentication and authorization. This is again one of those concerns that gets spread all across my source code. I do protection of the API and I do protection of the front end. I hide the button. So much code that gets spread around the application. I want it to be in my single source of truth, in my task. I want to say something as simple that CRUD operations are only allowed for authenticated users. And as soon as I do that, I see that I don't see any data because I'm not authenticated, and we get a forbidden error over here. Now, authentication itself is an external concern to Remalt. Smarter people than me created great authentication solutions. For this demo, I'm going to use a simple cookie session authentication. I'm going to say here, let's define the cookie session. I've defined here a static list of users. Of course, in real life, we're going to use a database, but for this demo, this will do. And I'm using a standard express route to sign in and sign out. Now, you may ask why am I not using backend method? And of course, in real life, I will use backend method here. But in this case, I wanted it to show you that Remalt is a library and not a framework. Remalt fits within your stack. Okay, you can simply use it side by side to whatever you do today. You don't have to go and write a new project with Remalt or replace everything that you've done with Remalt. You can introduce Remalt to existing projects and add them gradually where they serve you and where they give you value. Now on the front end, I'm gonna add an auth TSX that I prepare in advance. And if we look at that, we see a simple sign-in function using fetch and calling the routes that we've defined on our Node.js server. Sign out, super simple. And if I sign in as Steve, we see, let me save everything. Let's try to sign in. We get an error. Let's sign in with Steve. We see that we still don't get the data. We still get a forbidden error. And the reason that exists is because we never told Remalt how to get the user. Okay, we set the user over here to the request session, and we need to tell Remalt how to get this information from the request. And to do that, we're going to define the get user option that gets a request, and we'll put the same code that we have above to get the user. And as soon as I do that, I can see the data. Okay, so I can control authentication in one place, but wait, that's not just it. Not all users were created equal, and sometimes you want to have authorization. Some people have some privileges, others do not. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say that I don't want to allow delete to anyone, and insert I want to allow only to people with admin privileges. And as soon as I do that, if I try to add a new item, I will get a forbidden error because Steve is not an admin. So let's go ahead and nominate Jane as an admin. And if I sign out and sign in as Jane, we can see that Jane can add a new task. But if I sign out and sign in as Steve, Steve gets a pretty rotten developer experience or user experience because he's seeing a forbidden error. In real life, I would actually like to hide the form from it, but I want to do it while relying on my single source of truth, on my task. So to do that, I'm going to head over to our app TSX. I'm going to highlight the form. And I'm going to say task repo, metadata, to show this form only if insert is allowed. So now you can see Steve cannot see the form. And the beauty of using this is that both the API and the UI rely on the same authorization rule. So if I'll go over to our task and I'll say that, hey, anyone can insert, then Steve will see the button. And if I say if only admin can insert, Steve will not see the button. Perfect. So we've completed all of these. And the next stage that is left is just like I promised, deploying this to production. So let's go ahead and do that. And to deploy this to production, we need to configure a few things. First of all, we cannot use a hard-coded connection string. We're going to get it from our server. So I'm going to do process env database URL or our connection string. And I also want this Node.js server to serve our API. So I'm going to add this code over here. So it basically tells it that when you are running not through Vite, go to the this folder, which is when I run Vite build create the index HTML, JavaScript, and CSS in the this folder. And I'm going to return the data from there. And I'm also going to listen on port that is provided to me by the environment. So that's what I need to do to prepare for deployment. Now let's just check that it builds it and I haven't done any crucial mistakes. And let's go ahead, see that it works. Perfect. You can see the files were created in the this folder, just like I said before, which we're going to serve here as from the Node.js server. So we're going to use the same server for the API and the Node.js. Now, once we've done that, I'm going to use, you can deploy to any Node.js servers that you like. You can deploy to Vercel, to Railway, to Heroku. I'm going to deploy to, of course, AWS or Azure or Google platforms, Google Cloud, sorry. But I'm going to deploy to Railway because they have a very simple UI to do that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say Railway init. And I'm going to let it generate a random name. Give it a second. And then I'm going to ask Railway to open the project in the browser. And here I'll add a database, a Postgres database, and I'll also add an empty service. And in our empty service, let's refresh it. Let's wait for it to apply the change. Don't you love live demos? Okay, we're going to give it another chance, and if not, we're going to just simply init a new project because I think something is annoying it. Let's go define a new project. We'll give it another second to give us our name. Maybe there's a problem with the API. I really hope not. And let's treat it more gently this time. I'm going to add a database. Let's see if the database is added, and then I'm going to add the empty service. Perfect. And then I'm going to add an empty service. Okay, I'm going to give them another chance, and if not, let's head over just for a second for the PowerPoint. I'm going to go through another slide, give them a second to catch up. And if that doesn't work, we're going to switch host to something else. Okay, here we are. We have our empty service. So I'm going to go to our empty service, and I'm going to define an environment variable that will be the database URL that we've configured before. Okay, so remember we've done process.env.dataprovider to get the data provider connection string, the database URL, sorry. And Railway will place the correct connection string in the variable based on the definitions that we've done here. We're also going to get it to generate for us a domain. And we're going to ask it to upload the source code. So at this point in time, Railway will go and take our source code, upload it to Railway, do npm install, npm build, and eventually npm start. Now, while it does that, let's go and talk a little bit in PowerPoint. So Remalt fits your existing stack. It can be used with React, Angular, Vue, Svelte, Solid, Vanilla.js, Quick, anything you like. It also works with any server, Express, Next, Nest, Festify, Happy, Ono, anything you want. It supports most database, MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, Oracle, MongoDB, SQLite, and it can run on any server or serverless runtime, Node.js, Bun, Dino, on Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, Heroku, Railway, anything, Vercel, anything that knows how to run Node.js, Bun, or Dino. Now, there's a lot more to Remelt that I haven't shown you now, and if we have a little more time, I'm going to show it in our demo apps later. There's support for GraphQL and OpenAPI automatically based on your entities. There's support for entity lifecycle hooks for saving, deleting, and inserting logic in these places and more. There's relationship between entities. There's support for migration. There's support for field-based authorization, hiding fields based on authorization or hiding them at all. We've seen the admin panel. There's, of course, support for plain.js and also support for not working with decorators for those who don't want to work with decorators. I invite you all to go and visit our site, remalt.dev. And when you go there, first of all, give us a star on our GitHub repo because we really like those stars. And in our website, you'll be able to find tutorials on how to do everything that I've just done just now, but from scratch with React, Angular, Vue, Next, Solid, and Svelte. So you can go through the motion. It will take you about 2 hours from npm init all the way to deployment to the cloud. Now, I hope that I gave it enough time. And we can see here that it's completed the deployment and created our task. And if the gods of deployment will favor me, we'll be able to go and click on our where is the URL? I'm missing it. Yeah, here it is. No, here it is. Yeah, perfect. Our URL. And we got our application in production. I'm going to sign in as Jane. And I'm going to give you all a very important task, which we call give Remalt a star. And another one is join Remalt's Discord. And now I want you all to help me test this functionality. I'm going to go and create a QR code. And I'm going to place it over here. Yes, put it over here, make it bigger. And I'm going to ask you all to take out your phones, read this QR code, and see if the live query functionality actually works also for you. I'm going to try to do the same. Don't forget to sign in as Jane because she's allowed to add new tasks. And I see someone beat me to it, and you can see that I'm making changes on my phone, and it reflects immediately in the UI. Perfect. So we've seen how in about 30 minutes, I think I exceeded only a little bit, we were able to create a full stack application with database authentication, authorization, and even deploy it to the cloud. I invite you to visit our website, remalt.dev, as I've shown you before. It has a lot of tutorials. As I said, it also has some great example application. It has a full CRM written with React, Vite, or Express, and it has a shed CN React table, 10-stack React table that is already built and configured to give you a great UI super easily using cool things like, sorting and filtering, server-side filtering, and all of that. And there's a lot of information. If you visit, for example, our example apps or CRM demo, you can go there and see, first of all, the app. And you can also click the dev button at the top right as soon as the app loads. Yeah, see, Railway having a bad day today. Yeah, perfect. So as soon as we sign in, you see the dev menu here. You can see how the admin works on a larger database with multiple tables. For example, you can see that the relations actually work also in the viewer, which is a huge advantage. And you can see that the diagram looks great when you have a big database. And you can also see that it supports Swagger out of the box with just 3 lines of code, and support GraphQL also out of the box with just 3 lines of code. Now, I don't know how this works with questions, so if you have any questions, it would be great if you write them here. in our app. And let me check the chat here if there's anything here on the private chat.
So I think the questions will be coming from the comments tab on the right side.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Then I think everybody understood everything. It was pretty clear. Thank you very much, Noam, for this very nice presentation. So we understood everything, I think.
Okay.
And I think we should start using it because it helps us in every way. So
I think so too. And anyone who uses this, reach out to me. I'm available on Discord, on Twitter, on any medium. I'm super happy to help. And it gives me the pleasure of being able to release an application in a day. And I write applications in a day or two, and it's so much fun and so effective. I really enjoy that.
Thank you very much, Noam. So thank you guys. So now for the last talk we have for this very nice conference. For our I forgot to remove the screen also. So for our last talk, we have a very special speaker. So whereas his explanation is he wears too many hats. So if it's team lead, engineer, architect, it's everything about software developer. He has a very good experience, and he's here for us. So Jonathan, come to stage with us. How are you?
Hey everyone. I'm really happy to be there. Thanks for the different labels you put on me, but in a way, I am playing multiple roles in software development.
Yeah, we are very happy to have you here. So Jonathan will be talking to us today about micro front ends and how to unleash the import maps potential. So the stage is yours. You can share your screen.
Yeah, let's do that. All right.
Okay.
You see my screen? Yeah, I guess.
So I will be leaving you. So have fun.
Yeah, thank you. So hello again, everybody. I'm really happy to present today an interesting approach, which is combining the micro frontend architecture and the import maps. So before I start explaining that, I would like to tell you a short story, about, probably you already met that kind of story, right? It's a story about how a company was built. So at the beginning, a company is built based on a good idea, right? An idea that can solve a problem of many users. So we start building an MVP quickly to demonstrate what we have in mind. And it's a really great product. So we start maybe to convince other people that they should join that idea. And we create a small startup. And everything is going really well. So we have initial fundings and we can really start a new adventure, right? So that's really the beginning of my story. And then we have the expansion, right? We have really much more customers now because our idea is really great. So we start adding a lot of features. We start creating multiple applications, and we try to create a big platform to really respond to the users' demands, right? We also expand around the world. We create multiple teams. Each team is responsible of different applications. So to cover all of that, we need kind of an advanced architecture, right? An architecture that can support all of these applications. So it brings some complexity already to your architecture. And you also need some advanced process, right? You really want to be sure that all product people and technical people can work together around the world. So you also bring some complexity to your company, which brings sometimes, not all of the time, but it's something quite common, to instability. So when companies expand really fast, sometimes, usually, we see that they put the quality on the side, right? And they start meeting bugs after some years, right? So they feel they are more fixing bugs than working on features. They feel also that their release is taking months sometimes to be deployed. So they also discover that their technical debt, because they push for features, is really big now, and we have to pay that debt one day. And that brings frustrations and both on product team because they want to create new features, and technical team because they are really afraid of touching the code. And yeah, the company starts recognizing that they are wasting their money. So that brings to the last step, which is the call for help, right? So the first step is to recognize that we have some issues, right? So we need some external help because we don't have maybe the resource internally to fix that. Of course, we want a fix that has no impact on the current roadmaps. It should be fixing everything in short time, right? So we want kind of a perfect solution. But yeah, as we often know, does not exist, right? When you start, trying to solve all of that, we discover a lot of stuff, and there is no perfect solution. But at least maybe there is some solution that can match these different requirements, right? So before explaining that solution, I am Jonathan Jolin, right? I am a freelance software engineer, and mainly I am trying to support companies in their software development cycle. This is why we talk about multiple labels, but it's to try to really improve the different aspects of software development in general. And yeah, I'm really an NX lover, so I usually use NX to fix different aspects of that cycle, right? So I will first explain a bit what are the import maps, because it's not that known, even if it's native. So let's cover that a bit. Then I will cover again, because it's something that people read a lot about, the microfunctions architecture, but maybe with a different approach. And then I would like to show how the combination can be beneficial for many companies. The story I was just describing before, it's based on reality, right? And what I wanted to describe in that talk, it's a solution that was not perfect, of course, but a solution that helped a company to migrate their big product that was written in AngularJS to the new Angular framework. So we were using the microfunction architecture to be able to do that incrementally, and the import map to not being forced to refactor everything and produce a big bang. That was not possible, of course. So let's start talking about the import map. But first of all, I would like to remind about what is a JavaScript module. It's quite simple, right? A JavaScript module, we write that every day. It can be considered as a file at the end, a file that is creating some functions, variables, and we export these functions, we import them, and we are able to kind of create a context inside files. So this is my definition, at least, of a JavaScript module. Why I'm explaining JavaScript module? Because it's important to understand also that we will use this JavaScript module on two different sides generally in your applications. You have the build time module, right? And you have the in-browser time module. So the build time module, it's something we use a lot, right? It's where you write your code in common JavaScript, and then you will use some tool like Webpack or Rollup or whatever to optimize your code and to convert your code to a different format, a format that will be loaded then by your browser, and then your application will be able to be triggered and bootstrapped, right? So it's the way of working we do the most, right? Okay, there are different architecture today, but at least for a SPA application, that's the way we are working. And then we have maybe the less known in-browser module. The in-browser module, it's a possible way today to write directly JavaScript module inside your browser. So you will not have compilation, you will have your code directly interpreted by your browser. So you just have to create a tag with the type module, and then import your component by specifying the URL where your component is located, right? So you can directly use your component in your browser. But we can recognize that, if you have all of these URLs in your browser to manage, if you have different environments, you will have to replace them. It's not that easy. Also, if you want to use the same import name both on the browser, at the browser side and at the build time side, right? It can be difficult to manage. So this is where the import map will facilitate that, right? It's something, again, native. You can use that today on browsers. You just have to specify type import map, and it looks like a simple JSON where you will have an object where the key will be what you will use on your import, right? And the value will be the URL, the location where your JavaScript module will be located. So quite simple, right? So at the first view, nothing really complex, but this is really interesting, and I will explain why. Yeah, so just to say, it's something I want to insist on because it's not that known today, but you can do that already on any browsers. There is no limitation. We covered the import map, so I guess maybe you understood what is the goal of the import map. Let's cover quickly the microfrontends architecture. So before we talk about the microfrontends architecture, I like again to come back to the basics. When you use a browser, when you want to access to a product, right, you will put an URL in your browser, and then the browser will ask to the server, okay, give me the first index.html related to that URL, right? The server will return something, and because you have in your index multiple JavaScript file and multiple assets, then the browser will load all of that and plug these different assets in your product, right? And you will see your application display. So why I'm talking about that? Because to me, a micro-frontend architecture is exactly that. So we sometimes overcomplexify the architecture when we talk about micro-frontends, but it's just a structured way of loading bundles per context and plug that into a common platform. So maybe these bundles will be on different server, maybe this bundle will have different interface, but at the end, it's simply that. So I like to say that any application is a micro-frontend architecture. If you think like this, like I'm just loading files and I use these files to kind of consolidate my products, then any application are micro-frontends, right? But indeed, like I said, a micro-frontend architecture will inject some structure in the way you will create and you will plug these different bundles in your application. So usually we have an host, right? It's a kind of a container that will be loaded first, and that host will be the orchestrator of your microfrontends. So sometimes the host will react on the URL. For example, here I'm loading the admin page, so the host will be the orchestrator that will say, oh, this is an admin microfrontend that I have to load and plug on the application, right? We can also load some parcels or components. It depends on the name we want to use. And these small pieces can be used at multiple places. They will not be linked to an URL. And yeah, it's a way to share some components, right? And the last concept that it's often invisible, it's all libraries that we will use, all frameworks that will be shared between these different entities, right? So these are the major concepts you will find on the different framework today. And talking about the frameworks a bit later. So first, let's talk about the use cases. Usually we talk about the usage of the microfrontends with different frameworks when you want to combine different frameworks in one common platform. Even if I will not recommend that, it can help. But yeah, if you start a new application from scratch, I would recommend using one framework because loading multiple libraries in your product will decrease the performance of your application, right? And the compatibility between your different, across different entities. You have a second use case where is when you have, you've expanded around the world, right? So you have multiple teams, and then you decided that each team will create kind of a new bundle, will participate to a part of your application. So it's also useful to use microfrontend architecture when you have a distribution of your team around the world, which is kind of similar to when you want, for example, to split your application in different domains. So it's also a good way to kind of isolate your domain of your application. Having a microfrontend architecture will help to generate one bundle for one domain and isolate it, right? To avoid having a mix of different features in your application. And the last one, which is maybe less famous, but to me it can fit too, is when you have a complex infrastructure or a complex architecture. I mean, imagine you have one product with a lot of UIs, right? Different backend, different APIs, different type of APIs, databases, queue, really different complexity, and everyone is depending to each other. And yeah, you don't want to have to run all of that locally, and it's hard to run the product with that complex architecture. So what you can do is that you can split your UI in different pieces, right? A micro frontend, and you will be able then to work on only one piece of the application without having to work on to run the entire infrastructure. So that's, to me, also a valid way of using the micro frontends. Yeah, there are many frameworks for the that will help to implement the micro frontend architecture. I here highlight two different frameworks. One which is single SPA, that will maybe be more related to the in-browser aspect that I was talking about. It's really famous. It's kind of supporting almost all frameworks because it's native, simple to use, and you have a lot of flexibility in the way you can customize your architecture. And then on the other hand, you have the module federation, which is really popular today because Webpack is really popular, and it's kind of automated, right? You just, by putting some configuration, describing some configuration, you can split your application in small pieces, and then Webpack will orchestrate all of that for you. So it's two different aspects. Today we can see that they are joining on depending of the solution you want to solve. But it's interesting to watch these two frameworks. So I described the import map on one side. I described the micro frontend architecture, but the most important now is about the combination of these two, which is quite simple at the end, right? We have a micro frontend architecture, so I'm loading the host. The host has to load a micro frontend, right? Because the URL specify that it's an admin micro frontend that we want to display. So the host, by using just the import, right, from the JavaScript module, will request to the import map, okay, I want to load mfadmin, which is the key that we specified in our import map. The import map will then say, that micro frontend bundle is located at that path, right, at that location. And that bundle will be loaded from the server and then returned to the host that will then be able to inject that JavaScript into your page, right? So that's, for example, for a micro frontend, but it works exactly the same for a component. You want to load a component, for example, a lazy loading component. So you will import it. You will have the import map that will tell you where it's located. You will download it, and then you are able to inject it in your application. So that's quite simple. We just use the import map as the resolver for our different imports, right? So it's interesting, but we can ask, what's the added value of doing that in a micro frontend architecture? For example, why I don't let Webpack doing that for me? Because I can lazy load application, right? That's true. That's right. But if you think in terms of overridability of import map, that can be really interesting. What do I mean by that? The import map can be combined in your browser. That means, for example, if I have one import map where I declared all of my shared libraries, so here, for example, I declare a single SPA and arcgis. So if I do import arcgis, it will use that URL. I can also declare another import map that will contain all of my micro frontends bundles, for example. At the end, I will have a combination of these two import maps into one big import map, right? So it's interesting, but what is even more interesting is the fact that I can declare another import map with the same key, a key that already exists, but I will change the URL. So what will happen is that the previous key that exists in my page will be overridden by my new key. And you can already see that I changed the URL of a micro frontend that was located on my server, right? So I'm really able now to kind of tell to my browser, don't use that URL, but use a new URL that I decided to load. So to describe a bit how you can use that ID on a software development cycle, I split, I kind of split the development cycle in 3 big phases. Simple one, of course, it's more complex than that, but I will describe how it's beneficial for the local development, for the pull request with the review side, and for the deployment, right? So let's start for the local development. For the local development, it's really interesting because you can directly access to a distant server. So for example, here I am accessing to my test environment, right? And I load my product. So my test environment already have the latest main, for example, plus all of the complexity of my architecture. So I have my backend working, all of my authentication is there. I have my database also available. Everything is working as it is, right? And what I can do, I can directly on my browser overwrite my admin config, like I was explaining before, and say to the browser, tell to the browser, okay, don't load it from the server, but load it from my localhost, right? So I can really, without having to run everything locally, change the behavior of my products. So let's quickly do that. So here I have a macro front-end application, right? With cats and dogs. So each page is a different macro front-end, the nav bar also here. For example, it's a macro front-end. And I am on a distant server. So it's my application is deployed somewhere, right? So maybe there is the backend, but I don't care, right? But what I do care is that I have to work on the, for example, the dogs micro frontends, and I have to do some modifications. So instead of having to clone everything, run everything, what I can do, I can just start serving my dogs micro frontend, for example. So here I'm using NX, for example, to run that micro frontend. I just run it, right? It's really fast. I don't have to run the others. And I can see that my micro frontend is served on localhost and that port, right? So what I will be able to do now by using an utility that I will describe later, I am able to see all items that my import map is describing here, right? So if I show you, if I show you here on my console, the import map that are loaded, I will reload it quickly. So here, for example, I have different import map that I decided to, it's not JavaScript, right? It's just JSON files. So you see here the shared one, and I have my micro frontends. It's an import map that was downloaded. And here I see the list of the different items, right? So I will find that list again on that utility. And what I can do now, I can decide to overwrite, for example, the dogs micro frontend. And I will overwrite it with my local bundle, right? I apply the override, and now I reload it. And no modification, right? Because I just serve exactly what my server is serving locally. But now I have to, for example, change the image of the dog. So let's change it. Up. I decide to put a better dog image, right? Automatically, I am still on the distant server, right? But automatically, my browser will display my modification. So again, I insist on the fact that I don't have to run anything locally, just my micro frontend, and I can do modifications directly, right? I can write a title, for example, and I will see my modification automatically, right? So it's really interesting because you can really integrate your code directly on an existing server. So you don't have to wait for the CI and then the deployment, etc. You see your code on the latest code, right? So it's, to me, real continuous integration. So that's really the added value of the import map override at development side, right? Let's now see how we can use that for the pull request process, right? So I push my code. My CI will start to build my micro frontend because I just modified that one, right? I will generate new bundles. I will maybe put them on some blob somewhere. But what my CI will do too, it will generate a new import map, right? With just the micro frontend that was modified, which is pointing to the bundle that was generated by my pull request, right? So that's what my CI build will generate. And then the reviewer or the tester that has to check your PR will be able to download that import map and again do exactly what you did locally, but plug that that import map on a distant server, maybe a team server or another server where maybe there is some backend new APIs that are already existing, and test your code already. So it doesn't have to clone your branch. It doesn't have to deploy your branch somewhere. It can just download that import map, plug it to any environment locally, right? And then test it. So it's the import map overrides facilitate a lot the review side, right? So you will accelerate it too. And then the last step is the deployment side. It's also really interesting because your import map will be the source of truth, will be the manifest, will be the orchestrator of your different piece of your micro frontend. So let's imagine that each time you have a build, you create new bundles, right? And you already upload these bundles on your production environment, right? But until you don't use them, it will not be displayed, right? They are just existing physically on your server, right? And when you decide that you want to deploy, for example, a new release candidate, you just have to move that import map on your server or update it, update the existing one, right? And then that import map will be sent to your client, and then your client will see the latest versions, right? So it's also facilitate the rollback, right? You made some mistake, so you can just revert the previous import map, and in a second, the new import map will be sent to your client, and the client will see the previous version, right? And it also helps, for example, for incremental deployment. You can just decide to update some micro frontends on your import map. So that's also really useful. Other use cases, for example, if you want to do canary deployments based on the users or A/B testing, you can decide by using some proxy to serve different import map depending on the users. So the users will have different product versions, for example. But everything will be on the server. The server will not have to route different version of your product or deploy different version of your product. So that's also a really great added value when you want to use import map and you want to deploy that import map on your server. So this is it mainly. I explain what is an import map. I insist on the fact that it's native. It's really simple. It helps to resolve module at runtime, right? I describe the benefits of the micro frontend architecture, that it helps to really work on small pieces of your application. The combination of the two are really useful for your development cycle, right? On multiple aspects. It helps to, by using overability, it helps to really work on only small part and override that directly on your browser. So it's really useful. So that's the end of my story, finally, right? My client is really happy because it has a solution that does not impact them too much. And now they will be able to migrate their application step by step. So before finishing my talk, I would like to give some credit, first of all, to SingleSpa. I learned a lot from that framework. That approach that I was describing is not something new, not that popular, I would say, or famous. But if you start looking at the SingleSpa documentation or at the YouTube channel of John Denning, which is the creator of that framework, you will learn a lot about how a browser is working finally. I would like also to give some credit to Carol Fredericks. It's an employee of the client I was working for, where we put that architecture in place, and they continue working with that approach now. And they wanted to modernize it, so he created a repository with the latest technologies they want to use. So if you are interested by these technologies, so NX, Angular, which is producing then ESB bundle and SingleSpa, I really encourage you to have a look to that repository. So thank you for listening. If you want more details about that, I wrote an article about that approach on Medium, so you can find me on any social network. And yeah, I'm really happy to talk to that TIL conference.
Jonathan, thank you very much for this wonderful talk. Really learned a lot from it also. So I hope I can have the time also this week to try this single SPA. Yeah. Thank you very much for your talk, and thank you very much for everybody. So this was our last talk for this wonderful conference. Yeah, people here were awesome. So yesterday we had around 1,000 viewers, so online viewers. Today also around the same number. So thank you very much, guys, and see you in the closing session in a few minutes. So there will be another YouTube track for this. Yeah. See you guys and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Have a nice weekend also.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
You too.